You are listening to With Intolerance, a podcast for machinists by a machinist. I'm your host, Dylan Jackson of Proteum Machining, and this week I am joined in person in the Proteum podcast studio. Chris Zapatini, how's it going?
I'm doing great. Let's go.
Woo!
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, give us the update. What has been going on? Came down. We had lunch or dinner first, which is great.
Yeah, burrito time.
Oh, so
in
good.
In Arizona, you just gotta, especially in Tucson.
Right. Yeah. I figured,
and it's
having Mexican food is probably not a bad thing every time you come by.
And it's not like a Zap episode if food isn't involved, you know?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
I had a bowl of corn pops for breakfast. So, where were we at?
You weren't here for your current Arizona project. You were here for your other Arizona project, I believe.
Right. Oh, okay. So then I didn't go to New Hampshire right away. I don't actually remember where the fuck I went on that one.
It has been a while because I was gone for a week as well.
Yeah. I'm like thinking like, oh, we recorded like 2 weeks ago, but it was more like 4 weeks ago.
I think so, yeah.
So a lot has happened. I've been like all over the fucking place.
Well, let's start with the highlights. Can you share your hire now?
Yes, yeah. So I hired John Mahon, big 5-axis guy on Instagram, and we've been chatting for like a year or so. Or not a year, like maybe like 8 months. But I mean, I met him. They hired the company he was working for hired us to like do probe training last July,
right?
Which was cool. And then we just kept chatting, and he was like looking for something or potentially looking for something, and it's like I think there's a good fit here. And we chatted and chatted and chatted, and then kind of like, I mean, in the last like 2 months or whatever, is like, I think we want to do this. And he's like, yeah, I think I want to do this. Like, it makes sense. And he started here in Arizona 2 weeks ago. First day traveling. And right after the CrowdStrike thing happened.
Jeez.
Which is like, are you fucking serious?
Was he flying Southwest at least?
Nope. Nope. So he wasn't too affected by it.
Good.
Luckily. He was more affected like the second time, but he affected like first 2 weeks, traveled both weeks, like here and back. And that effectively like doubled the amount of times he's traveled on an airplane in his like whole life.
Which is awesome.
Which is, yeah, it's wild. Like I didn't even think about that, but it's like, oh yeah, I guess that's a thing. And I mean, he seems to like it. He's crushing. Like he's doing a really good job. It's been nice because like we have a very like complementary technical skill set, and like we play off each other very well, and the customer likes him, especially because what we're doing is, I mean, it's not a secret. It's like, it's mini RCR, which is an electric version of that fucking 3-wheel death trap that Honda used to make, but it's an e-bike, so it's got pedals, and it definitely can't go over 20 miles an hour, wink, wink.
Definitely not, right?
Yeah, and that thing's cool, and so he's like way into dirt bikes, and it's been neat because he just like, he understands what we're doing. He understands like the mission, which is the guy's trying to make like 100 of these a month. It's very doable. And initially where they're like, we want to be able to like load up, it's on an EC400 pallet pool. We just want to be able to load up like a whole bike's worth of parts and hit go. And at first it's like, well, that's not really what we would do, like what we'd normally do. But then you like think about it, and it's like, considering that they don't have any, like they don't have a skilled machinist or anything, it's like, it's not a bad idea. It's really like, it actually makes our lives a lot easier. We have to make less fixtures that way and all this other stuff. Like we just batch like a bunch of, I mean, it's like one of the dopest fixturing jobs we've done.
Awesome.
Because we have 4 tombstones, all with like 200 millimeter, like dual VROS.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, the dual VROS system, that like the NSL 200 on each face. Like each tombstone costs like 20 grand before you even put like a plate on it. And
right.
And it's like so cool. I'm like, really, the guy's like, the owner is like, is this good? And it's like, this is the best.
Yeah, right.
Like, this is
not only good, this is the best.
Yeah, it's like, this is baller shit. And he's like, do you like it? And it's like, yeah, absolutely. I'm like,
Did you tell him to buy it?
I did tell him to buy
It's
it.
like, of course I like it. What are you talking about?
Yeah, I was like, I'm glad you went for it, because like a lot of people have come to us and be like, we want to do this shit. I can think of one project in particular that we did like 3 years ago, that they were like, we want to, like, this is what we're doing. It's this many tombstones. We want fucking Vero West. We want this. We want that. And it's like, okay, designed all the fixtures, got it going, and it was like $300,000 worth of Vero S, and they were like, what's the alternative?
Right. They're like, oh, actually, we're not as baller as we thought we were.
Yeah. It's like, that's like a whole machine,
Yeah.
like worth of fixturing. And so we went like Jurgen's ball lock, because it was like 10 times cheaper,
right.
and it was like a million times worse. Like, it's just not great in like a horizontal application.
Yeah.
Unsurprisingly, like having a bunch of weight on these pins makes it hard for them to come out. Like,
Yeah.
especially because like some of them are like, in that case, it was like a 40-pound block of steel going onto this thing. It's like, that plate's not coming off.
Yeah.
Like, it can come off, but it's not gonna
Right.
come off.
No, it makes sense though to do one bike's worth of stuff, because if they're not technical machinists and they can't like inspect things, the way that they're going to inspect it is by assembly. And so if they can
Right.
assemble a full bike and see that feedback fairly quickly, I think it'll reduce scrap in the long run.
Absolutely. It's like, I mean, it's just such like a bizarre project, because it's like basically not production like we thought it was. It's like prototyping plus, where they are like, oh yeah,
They're still changing stuff as you go.
Kind of are, yeah. I mean, like, we're 3 weeks in now, and they just ordered stuff to like measure the parts, which is pretty cool.
Oh.
And most of it is like fine, you know. We got him to buy like the Mitutoyo like bore head
The
thing.
little paddle ones.
Yep. And he's like, that's a lot. And it's like, yeah, but what's the alternative? Like, we could make a bunch of like go no go gauges, or you know, like the crazy thing would be like buy a CMM, like,
Right.
you know,
Right.
or like use a dial bore gauge, which like is an option.
But training wise.
Right.
Yeah.
Or this is like just dumb. You just like fucking jam it in there, and it's like, that's my measurement.
Yeah.
Easy peasy.
Yeah, a lot of those you can even set up as go, no go. Like they will just tell you like
Yeah.
red or green or like go or no or something like that.
That'd be cool. We're going to start with Juan, because
Yeah.
like, he's got like basically everything under an inch, we're just going to use pins, and everything over an inch, we're going to use this thing.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Smart.
Easy peasy.
Very cool.
Especially because one of them is like one, I think it's like a metric number, but it's like 1.7232 or something like that is the diameter. And it's like,
Okay.
the fuck? Yeah. Plus 5/10 minus nothing. And you're like,
Right.
or minus 5/10 plus nothing, whatever.
Whatever it is,
But,
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, so John's been like crushing that. We've been able to like effectively tag team. Like, that was the cool thing, is like we had a general idea of what we were gonna do, and then as we got into it, and like he just made the decision, and I liked it, which is, instead of making like a plate per part or like similar parts, we'll have like how many of these parts can we fit on a single plate? So we'll have like 5 parts on a plate that are all like different,
Oh, cool.
you know?
Okay.
And they're just like spread out in a way that makes sense. And it's like, so that one goes in, and then it makes 5 parts, and then it comes out, and like, boom, you just have like all this jewelry there, and it's like sick. And that project started kind of weird, you know?
Right.
Like, it was like crazy contentious for like seemingly no reason, and like actually come to find out it really was for no reason, you know, like in some like just politics basically, which like made it bizarre. But the owner's like pretty dope. Like, I showed you yesterday, I was like, man, this guy fucking hates us. But no, he fucking loves John, because when John was like, Chris is coming back next week, he was like, oh, dude, you're not coming back? And he asked me, he's like, wait, he didn't want to like come back here? And I was like, no, I mean, he just doubled the amount of times he's traveled in his life.
Right.
He's got a wife, you know? Like, this is new for them, so like he can't be traveling constantly right off the bat, and like that's not the goal anyway. So he'll come, like, I'll be here this week. We should get almost to the finish line, and then he'll come back. But then we were talking yesterday. He's like, hey, we might have some more work if you want to do it. And it's like, yeah. And he's like, what about, obviously it always ends up being like fucking gun stuff. and he's like, and we can like test it here on site. Like, what the hell? He's like, yeah, I got an underground shooting range. Like, what? I was like, can we see it? And it's like, he's like, yeah. So we go, and it's like fucking like a legit
shooting range. Yeah.
Like you'd see anywhere with like the targets that are on a fucking track and everything. And he's like, check this side out. And he's like, check out my speakeasy. And it's like, what? And we go over into the other room. He's got like a whole kitchen bar thing and like a fucking golf simulator. And it's like this dude's fucking dope. And like, it just kind of comes down to, there's like a couple of things that I've like realized, especially, I was working with Graham. I'll touch on that in a second. But like we, after like talking to Graham, it like really made me like change my way of like thinking about what like empathizing with the customer or whatever. And most of the time this is like, I mean, it's kind of like, I don't want to infantilize anybody, but if like customers are like nervous, or I mean, in most cases, if we're involved, there's like a fairly large investment outside of us.
Right.
And they obviously don't know what they're doing because we were involved more likely than not. So it gets to this like customers will act kind of in a certain way, and it's mostly just out of like nerves,
Right.
Or it's not like they're being an asshole intentionally. They're just like not unable, but they just might not have the language to be like, I'm nervous that I made the wrong choice. Because like he was asked like, is this good? Do you like this machine? Do you like the work holding? And it's like, yeah, this is like I'm like, dude, this is the most baller work holding setup you could possibly have on this machine. And it is like crazy fucking expensive, and I like really appreciate you buying this, but considering that the guy running this has no idea what he's doing, and like our plan is to eventually put like the slots on the bottom of the pallet, so all the pallets are the same height, and like so that he could just kind of put the pallet
wherever and it'll probe and find out. Yeah.
And then it'll be like, oh, I'm doing this one. And so he doesn't have to think about anything. Like, and you can kind of do that with whatever, but like the Vero S makes it easy because you just like fucking throw air into it and it's like, yeah, we're done.
Right.
And if he wants to do gun shit, it's like we just fire up another pallet, throw it on there. It's great.
Right.
Like, and then once we start and most of these questions are coming like before we've finished a part or made a part. And then once we started with the most like blingiest part, the fucking one of the swing arms. It's like the biggest, one of the, not the most complicated, but definitely like the sexiest part. And like we start there, we cut apart, and it's like we're good, And I mean, like obviously still like on top of it, but it's not the same level. He's like, oh, these guys know what they're doing. John is like, I'm programming parts. John is making fixtures. I fire him the program. He runs my shit, which like he said, like he told you, he's like, that's weird.
Yeah.
Which is like,
he told me, he was like, I'm loving it. He's like, I am so out of my normal though. He's like, I'm running other people's programs. He's like, I'm used to tiny medical stuff, not big aluminum hogouts. Like,
yeah. And like we've been using, cause like some of these, like it's just, they're weird shapes, and it was funny because he was saying, he's like, I thought aluminum might suck because it just like doesn't cut it, And it's like, because it's gummy or whatever, which is like, if you don't really cut it that often, like you could see how you could get to that conclusion. But we're using like all Frasia end mills. It's all Frasia everything. He was cutting the shit out of himself because he's used to the Frasia stuff, but it's like that's coated,
right? So
it's not as sharp.
Right, yeah.
So like the AXFPSs and all that stuff, and it's like you're just like going both ways, like, and it's just like, oh, no problem. He was saying, he's used to like sneaking up on stuff, because like in titanium or stainless, if you're like an aluminum part, if the part's oversized by like 1/8 of an inch and you like probe on center,
you're probably fine. Yeah.
But like in stainless or titanium, like that's catastrophic.
Yeah.
Like you were just like fucking shit up.
Right. Yeah.
And so it's like, oh, well, the material's small. That first put is like just like gnarly.
Oh, that was a little bit louder than normal. Cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. But yeah, it is interesting. It's like a part the size of my palm would be big, and like we're doing parts that are like fucking 22 inches long.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Any other updates since the last time? Any other jobs that have gone exceptionally well or maybe exceptionally poorly?
Yeah, I was just thinking, like, I was in California. Like, that's where I was. So I was here, right? So I came here. I remember now.
Okay.
Like, I came here, I went to the mine, and I was here to start the one we were just talking about. And that week was a fucking loss, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And that was, like, the thing where it was like, what the fuck is going on? And it was just, like, weird and contentious and all this other stuff, but, like, that's fine. And then I left, and I went to California. And that was another one that was, like, such a weird, like, it was just bizarre because we were picking up work like that was like done already. We have everything, but they weren't giving me everything. And they're like, "Oh, we evaluated this stuff." And like one of the guys on the floor is like, "I don't understand really what we're doing here." And it was just like it was just such a bizarre situation, and we didn't like get to finish. Like, so, but I had to leave, so I left. But like, and now we have to like pick it up at some point. But it was just like a very, like, that was weird.
And that was, you left then to go back to Delaware? Is that right? Because they were like, we're ready to cut.
Oh, no. So that was, yeah, right. So I left California. Oh yeah, this was like my fuck linear systems moment. I've been feeling it for a while, but like I got to a point where this is what ended up happening. Like we were cutting and like, they're like, yep, all this fixturing ran on this type of machine somewhere else, like these parts, whatever. And it's like, okay. So like they mounted the fixturing. They're like, this is how it should be. And it's like, okay. And this is all the tools. Okay. And then it didn't work. Like we were over traveling, and it's like the fixture's too low. It needs to be higher. And they're like, oh yeah, we have these riser plates. And it's like, why isn't that there? So
so this is a linear pallet pool?
On a horizontal. And then like, okay, we got through that, like got it all mounted, reset all the zeros. I like trained the guy on like how to use the probe and like what I was doing and blah, blah, blah. And then we go to cut again, and the fucking pallet system, like the linear system goes down, so all of it goes down.
No.
And it was like, well, that was like Friday. It's like, well, we're fucking hosed, dude. Like, I can't do anything.
Right.
And then I left there to go to New Hampshire.
Okay.
To work with these guys, Ian and Alex. They listen to the show.
Awesome.
That's how I ended up there, actually. And that was the thing I was like kind of working on when we were like with that 3-channel Nakamura with the fucking crazy turret loading thing.
That thing was super cool.
That was those guys.
Okay.
And it got to a point where why I ended up there is that I was like, I don't feel comfortable. Like what they're trying to do is like, I don't feel comfortable just like throwing this over the fence.
No.
You know?
What you showed me, like,
yeah.
No way.
Right. It was like, oh, that's fucked. Yeah. And so when I got there, I was like, I think we can like get this going pretty quickly, but like, I just want to be there. And so we show up, and this was like, that's when the CrowdStrike thing happened, was like Friday morning. And I was like, oh, I don't know what's going to happen. But then no problems. I got out. The biggest thing was like, I hadn't booked a rental car like for where I was going. And that was really expensive, like crazy expensive. There was 2 things that I didn't book because like most of the time it's fine.
Right.
But like there was a rental car and a flight. And so the rental car for 2 days was like $1,000. And like my flight back was like $1,500. And it was like, what the fuck?
Dude, you got to do the Ethan special next time. Just rent a U-Haul truck.
Yeah.
For like $100 a day or whatever.
Yeah. And man, but yeah, we went there. I went there, and like Ian had basically already like had it. It was just like some very like minimal shit. Like basically, they wanted to measure like they said measure the part, but it wasn't measure so much as just like place the part evenly in the chucks because, they're loading it with the fucking turrets.
Right.
So when I thought measure, I was like, oh, well, we can like load it into, because he had the loading done, we can load it into the chucks and then smash the spindles together because like Nakamura has that quill function. So you can like smash them together till it hits like a value and then record that position and get it there. And then based off of that information, we can make it even in both. And that worked, but that's not what they wanted. Like the scope was to do it with the chucks, with the turrets, but it's like you can't measure with the turrets. But you can't measure with the turrets. And this is like, this is a good one because I had talked to Ian and I was like, I don't think I'm ever going to fucking work with you guys again. Like, I'll work with you, you're good. But like something about the way that this is going with your boss is kind of fucking pissing me off, which is we had the solution. You said you wanted to measure the part and place it evenly. We did it. I did it. Like, and it's done. But he's like, well, it has to be the turrets because it has to be the turrets. And
like, but why?
But why? And it's like, and I was like, this is kind of fucked because we're driving towards like doing a solution because it's like doesn't do what was described, but is like what he wanted, and it worked, I guess. But I was like, but that's not measuring the part.
Well, it's just shitty because that's similar to doing a math problem, showing your work, and the teacher marking you down there saying, no, that's not how I wanted you to do it.
Right.
It's like, I got the right answer. Yeah. It worked. What are you talking about?
I was like kind of salty about it, and like I was like, what are we doing here, man? I'm like, oh, these fucking guys are gonna like stiff me on pay and all this other stuff.
Right. On one hand, I understand like the customer is always right, blah blah blah. The other half of that is in terms of like taste.
Yeah. Right. Because the other thing is like what he was like, what was asked like in terms of, and we got getting hung up on the measuring of the part is like it's not possible.
Right.
I mean, it's kind of possible, but like you have to do a lot of like. There's no way you can like get the like between two channels. I mean, not no way, but like there's not an easy way to get the difference in the position between the both channels into like one spot.
And it's not accurate either.
Yeah.
Or not as accurate, I wouldn't think.
I don't know. I mean, like, so what they ended up doing is just like smashing them together and then doing like incremental moves. So it doesn't measure it, but it makes it even. And so I was like, okay, I mean, like, that doesn't do what we said, but like, fine, if it works, it works. And then I talked to his boss or whatever, like, yesterday, and we had like a good conversation where he's like, there could have been better things on your end in terms of like timing and shit. And it's like, yeah, that's fair. I mean, he's like, and on my end, I probably could have like scoped it out a little bit better, been like more clear with what was going on. Like, and it's like, I was like, because of the whole measuring thing. And he's like, I didn't actually want it to measure. I just wanted it to be even. And it's like, that's a fucking big difference.
Right. Like, those words do mean things in this case.
Yeah. But so like after that conversation, it's like, I mean, he was like, I do want to work. Like, you did help us a lot. Like, I don't know. I didn't feel like I did anything, but he's like, you helped. And like, I talked to Ian a lot on the phone, like towards the end. And like, we got it going. He's like, I do want to work with you again. So I was like, I mean, after that conversation, I was like, okay, I probably could. You know? Like, that made me feel better.
Good.
Because I was like, this is fucked. Like, I was like, I fucking hate this.
Right. Well, I could see that being very frustrating. You know, doing your best and then having them say, nah.
Yeah, I was like,
do it again.
It's like, we had it. Like, it does what you wanted to do. Like, what's the problem?
Right.
And like, it was running parts, and Ian like did a fucking great job. Like, yeah, it was cool. It was like dope.
Well, I would imagine too, had he thought about it, measuring with Aquila would have provided additional data too.
Yeah,
like you could measure that, deprint it out.
Right.
And then if anything ever went wrong, you could go back to that and say, oh, this one's 50th hour, 100th hour, 2 inches oversized.
Right. And like part of it's just about speed. You know? We just got to go fast.
Yeah.
It's I mean, like what it is like fucking insane. And then I was like, well, and my first thought too, I was like, oh, we need to get a fucking robot on this thing. Mm-hmm. And from what it sounds like, they need to put a fucking robot on that thing. Because, like, loading it, even if you loaded it, like, the same way, like, I mean, because loading it onto the turrets, like, works or whatever. But, it, like, even doing that, like, just having a robot do that, like, instead of using a fucking crane, would be way better.
Yeah.
And it could just, like, run a pallet of parts and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But they're holding off on that. Did get them some fucking AXFPFs though. Like I'm like the AXFPS fairy or like Joel is rather.
Dude, they're so good.
Yeah,
they're so good, and they've come down in price so much from when I first started using them.
I'm not gonna lie to you. I have no idea how much they cost at all. I've never bought one.
Now I don't know exactly what I pay, but now they're under 100, and I know for the 3/8 that I use at least. But when I know when I first started using it. Man, I want to say it was like $150 or something.
Yeah. Even still, like that's not bad considering you can ramp at like 25 degrees.
Right.
Like I didn't get that ballsy this weekend. I got up to like 15 degrees at like 150 inches a minute. And like you're like, wow, it gets to the bottom of that fucking pocket really fast.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are ridiculous, and they like because I remember when we first got one. I want to say Joel just sent me one. He was like, "Hey, try this out. We just added these an inch." And then I started trying, and I was like, "Oh, I kind of like this." And like I didn't have anywhere near the balls to run it what they were telling me to. And then I asked, I was like, "What do these cost?" And he's like, "Oh, that one's like I said, I think it was like $130, $150, something like that." And I was like, don't know if I can justify that. And then I used it for a few more weeks, and I was like,
it's still going.
I'm stuck. I might get one for every machine. Like these are so good.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much everywhere I go, I'm like, you guys want to try this?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I have one customer who's like, it sounds really loud, and I'm like, and I was like, I mean, it makes kind of, I mean, it's like, dude, it's not a straight wall.
Right.
It's a fucking corn cob.
Yeah.
But I was like, look at this, and like one of the guys like, is that? They're associating, it's old school guys that are like, it's loud, so it must be affecting the spindle. I'm like, dude, we're at like 10% spindle load right now. Like this thing, like we're not even fucking close to what it could be doing.
Yeah.
And yeah, like, when I was doing the IMTS demo parts this weekend, I was like, what can the 1/4 inch do? You know? And like, the one we're using, 1/4 inch, 925 thou of flute length, and we're doing like a ramp at 15 degrees, 900 thou deep into a 40 thou and a 40% step over, so 100 thou, and it's just like, brah, like no fucking problems, and it's like, dude, this is fucking cheating. Like, that's insane. I showed because I was at Lights Out. And I cut the first chips on their brand new machine, which is cool. I think maybe not, but
cut the first real chips on that machine.
Yeah. And so, like, on Friday, like, one of their engineers, he was like setting up a part, and then his post was fucked up, so he wasn't able to like get it going. And he's like, "Oh, it's yours." And then I cut some chips. And then the next day, he's like, or Sunday shows up and he's like, "How's it going?" I was like, "I got 12 of the 15 done." And he was like, "Holy shit." I'm like, "You want to see this thing go?" And like, he's like, "Sure." And we cut, and it's like slow. Like we running it in safe run, like the Haas safe run, so it doesn't like blow itself up.
Right.
And because like we were getting like cutting in between the jaws a lot.
Oh,
you know,
living dangerously.
Well, like, I mean, it's an IMTS demo. I might as well make it scary,
right?
And you know, so like probes, it's like moving in like 25% rapid, even when you're at like 100, and it's like fucking crawling. And it faces, and that's okay. And then the fucking half-inch FPS comes, and I'm like, "Hey, check this out." And he's like, "Okay." And he sees it like ramp, you know, like 15 degrees, 200 inches a minute into like a fucking 20% step over at like 350 inches a minute. And it's like this 2.5 by 2.5 by like inch deep pocket is like gone.
Right.
And he's like, "Oh, wow." Like, yeah.
Oh, they're just so good.
Yeah.
They really are.
I was like, that's fucking great.
Yeah, it's funny. You'd send me pictures like once every other hour. And you're like, got another part done. Got another part done. Here's another 2. I'm like, I'm like sitting at home feeling lazy because you're just like on the weekend just crushing it.
Yeah, I was like, hey, check this out. And Graham was like at a concert and he's like, I love the play-by-play. It's like, well, it's like we had a mission. We had to make 15 parts, you know? Mm-hmm. That's why, who is it, Brody Huck? Why is that card so dirty? Because we're fucking working, baby.
There you go.
Yeah. I'm a messy bitch, that's for sure. Like I clean at the end. I don't clean along the way. It's like I have a goal and I'm gonna see it to the end and then I'll clean.
Maybe.
Which is whoa. It wasn't my shop, so I cleaned.
There you go. There you go. Okay.
Yeah, it's hard to be like, well, it's later. I mean, clean somewhat. I think the material area was like a little bit of a mess, but it's like, what am I going to do with all this stuff?
Right.
Graham accidentally ordered like so much more material than we needed. It is very funny.
Are you guys going to be running those wet at the show, or are they going to be air cutting?
No.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's going to be like, we're going to be fucking ripping. It's going to be fucking cool. And that's like the happy update. And then I got the fucking spicy update, which is interesting because like we talked about it in this room last time about potential partnership, whatever, and then that fucking came to a head last week, and I was like, I'm still fired up about it. Obviously, like I mean, I was standing, pacing, eating that burrito.
Yeah. You could not sit still. You were like, no, I've got things to get off my chest.
Even though it's all shit I've just been saying over and over, just like it is the to like shout out to AJ. It's the audacity of it all, you know. It was just like I hadn't thought anything of it. Like looking back, it makes sense. Obviously, like he was just saying the right words, but he would say these things that, like, again, looking back, makes sense. Like, I don't want you to feel like I'm putting a blanket on you and like doing whatever. And it's like, you're the artist. It's like the artist in the record label and whatever. And it's like this really weird shit to say. And it's like, I don't know what you're talking about because nothing that you're saying right now makes that make me think that.
Right.
So,
well, at the time you were very excited about a potential partnership. And so those words just don't mean anything in relation to a partnership.
Yeah, exactly. And like the whole, I don't want to put a blanket on you. I don't want to put a blanket on you. It's like, because you do. I don't want you to feel like you're putting that. Like, I don't want you to feel like I'm putting a blanket on you. It's like, so because you are putting a blanket on me. I am,
but just don't feel like I am.
Yeah. Because it's like the only two things I wanted. Like, I mean, for the most part, was like keep my team and continue to do national work, and he didn't want to do either of those. Right. And it's like half of what people like about us is that, I mean, the good part about doing the national work is that or doing work nationally is that we don't do it for like any one machine, any one person. We do it for everybody. Like, we're not coming at you from like, we only do this particular type of machine or only do that particular type of machine. And like, we only work on this. Like, we'll work on fucking anything. It does not matter.
Well, and I think most importantly is you're not in one sector either.
Yeah.
Because you're like very, very often areas of the country are focused on a certain sector. Right. You know, the Northeast is like very often medical related. Right. And so like if you were only there. Yeah. And medical all of a sudden dried up, you're SOL.
Fucking toast.
Yeah. Whereas right now you're like, I did something for like a Harley people and like, like this weird thing. And then, now I'm, mining and like, all kinds of stuff.
It's everything. Yeah. Which is the best. Yeah. It's awesome. And like, that is very often like a selling point for like the Selway guys where they're like, he doesn't like, it gives us credibility. Especially, and it gives like Selway credibility that they're like, we're bringing this guy in. He does work on fucking everything, and he does this everywhere. It's not. This is like he's not just coming in for us. And I mean, in that case, that would be. But like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like he does this everywhere, and he will fucking get your shit right. And it's like cool. Yeah. And that's like a huge selling point. Like, but whatever. So that's like the fucking the fire inside of me.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, you've been fired up all week.
Yeah.
Not that I blame you either.
Yeah.
You know, it is exceptionally shitty.
Right. And then like that same day, the guys up here with the robot, that he calls me and he's like, "Hey, we have this chip problem." And like it's because the parts catcher on the lathe is like there's a big ass hole in the door and it catches chips and then the chips fall in the door and the door doesn't operate correctly. And I'm like, oh, well, fucking just plug it up. And he's like, well, the engineer is back from vacation and he says he uses the parts catcher sometime. And I was like, that was the same day. I was like, fuck him. Like, dude, you're not going to be fucking using that machine with a parts catcher ever. It's got a fucking robot on it. We robot load and unload.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care what he says. Just rip it the fuck off and plug it up. Like, dude, what are we doing? What are we talking about here? I was like, if you asked your boss, Jeff, right now, like, oh, like, what would he do? Right? It's like, hey, this thing is preventing us from running overnight effectively. Do you think he's gonna? And like, Josh sometimes wants to use this thing. He would tell Josh to go fuck himself,
right?
And that the robot needs to run.
Yeah.
Like, that's just what he would do. Like, dude, come on.
Yeah.
Like, let's be
just
fucking
get it done.
Yeah. And then he finally did it today.
Good.
After I said it, and then after Graham said it, he was like, "Okay, I'll do it." Like, and it's like, yeah, let's go.
Right.
And, yeah.
Oh, boy.
So that's me. What's up with you?
Let's see. So just before our last episode, I was just starting that titanium job. Went super well. Again,
Insane.
Freza to the rescue. That little 4mm MFC lasted 13 plus hours in the cut. And it's like Brad broke one. Right. And then I think he changed the next one at 11 hours or 12 hours and was like totally fine. Like, what was crazy is I had run 3 or 4 parts before I left on vacation.
Yeah.
No, maybe even more, maybe 5 or 6. Anyway, I told Brad, I was like, hey, tool one's getting a little loud. Pay attention to it. Everything has tool breakage on it, so like you'll catch it. And then it lasted another, 3 or 4 parts being loud, ramping 8 degrees in the titanium.
Right. Fucking magic.
Oh, it was so good. And then the new TSC pump, I told you just before we started recording, it's just going to end up costing me a ton of money because now I want them on all my machines.
Right.
They're so quiet, and it's night and day now.
Yeah.
Like, and soon enough, once we replace them all, my shop will be so quiet, which I love. I absolutely love it. Like, my brothers are very quiet.
Right.
The Hermla is very quiet too, actually.
Yeah.
So that went great. Then I went on vacation for a week. It was a houseboat trip on Lake Powell.
That was pretty cool.
It was a ton of fun.
Yeah.
The houseboat was a piece of shit.
Yeah. You were telling, especially for like what you told me it cost. It was like, dude, they fucking.
It's so expensive, and they just do not take care of them. Like, the boat was built in 1977, I think we figured out.
Ugh.
And I don't think it had been upkept since like 1987, maybe.
Original pillows and everything.
It was gross. But like, we were, as a family, like, it was my wife's side of the family. We all endured it together.
Right.
Had an absolute blast though. Like, getting away, I had just enough cell reception that like every night I could check and make sure things weren't blowing up in the world.
Yeah.
But like, I could not see civilization from where we parked the boat.
Right.
Was in the water for 8+ hours a day. Yeah. And it was just
it was sick.
It was great.
The pictures were insane.
Oh, it was gorgeous. And like, I really, really, I introduced everybody on the houseboat to the concept of Type 2 fun, because we all kind of had to get on board and be like, this is going to be like, we're going to be very grateful we came. Yeah. There's a lot of suck that we're going to have to get through though,
right.
And we all did though. It was fantastic. They rented another little motorboat as well. So we went water skiing, and they had like a blow up, inner tube thing, and
fucking ballers over here.
It was awesome, dude. It was so good. We had a blast, and I came back. I still feel very refreshed. Like, it was my first very disconnected vacation in a long time.
Sick.
So that was great. Came back. We had like 3 or 4 days of somewhat slow.
Right.
I looked on the paperless board, and I was like, oh, there's only like 3 or 4 jobs on here.
Yeah.
And enjoyed it for about 2, and then it was like getting itchy of like, all right,
Yeah.
bring the noise.
Yeah.
And then it came back. And so,
Right.
you know, I kind of figured that's how it would be.
Screaming, get me work, get me work.
Well, you know, I just let it be because I knew that it wasn't going to take long for people to send us work. Like it hasn't, that this year has been insane.
Yeah.
And I don't see it. Nobody's given me any indication that this is going to let up.
Right.
They just keep saying great
Like,
things about our work. And they're like, let's give you more.
You can do this now? Sick. You can do this
Right.
now? Dub.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the Hermla has just been such a force multiplier for us in
Right.
terms of getting complex parts out quickly that, dude, it's awesome.
Yeah. Can we talk about U500? No, you did talk about it.
Yeah, I talked about it in the last
episode.
one. Like, I haven't bought anything yet. I
Yeah.
got it running in Machine Sim. Big thanks to Phil for helping me out with that. And I'm going to go up, I think, sometime this month to go look at one. And then obviously look more at IMTS about them and then probably make a decision after IMTS sometimes. I need to look at the books and see, is this an urgent thing that we need to do for taxes this year? Or is this like something we
right.
should hold off till next year?
We're
Because
just balling so hard.
it's just like one of those things that like, this is why I pay people to do tax stuff and to provide tax advice. Cause like, I just don't know. Like I need to talk to them and be like, hey, is this much money coming off the taxes this year advantageous, or does it just not even like, will we not even use it?
Yeah. I mean, technically, I believe if you bought it this year, you don't necessarily have to deduct it this year.
You don't
have like up to 5 years or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah. But we'll see. It really just depends. We need to sell probably the S700X1. I don't know if we would sell it with the 4th or if we would try to move that to the other S700.
Right.
Lots of little things.
Do you have to like pull the drive too, or does it like just plug in?
I think we would pull the drive and then have to have Yamazin kind of do all of the, like, I could probably find the parameters again, but I just would rather.
Yeah. Yeah, you're at that point now where it's like, this is easier.
Yeah.
Like, I just don't need to. Like, please don't fuck this up for me, Yamazin.
They've been fantastic, though. Jonah has been great about getting me quotes and stuff and took my call, and we talked for 20 or 30 minutes. He was like, oh, come on up, check out the U500 in our showroom, blah, blah, blah. Has been, you know, really helpful with the whole thing. So, yeah, we'll see. There are a few things I didn't realize until I got the model into Fusion that are limitations, but I don't know if they're limitations for the kind of parts we do. So the biggest thing I didn't realize until I was like really diving into any and all literature and PDFs that Brother puts out is at A90.
Okay.
There is only 270 millimeters of Y between the center of spindle and the front of the table.
Okay.
So when you add up a laying plate, a riser, and a vise, that means that you can only have a max stock of like, I think it's 4.6 inches or 4.5 inches.
Is it not like a drop trunnion type of deal?
It is. It's 50 millimeters, but that's including that. So that is everything. It's 270 from the face of the table to the center of the spindle.
That sucks. Yeah, that's pretty.
But that covers like,
I mean,
90% of the parts we've done
basically,
this year.
I mean, and at the same time, it's like, that's not the only one. You got the Hermla. If it doesn't fit on there, then you just throw it on the Hermla.
But you've also seen the kind of parts that I'm making on the Hermla. Like,
it's going to be fine.
I haven't taken the 52 millimeter. I've used the 96 millimeter vise once in the Hermla. Like everything else has been 52 millimeter vise. And so I threw the entire laying stack in there, and basically what I've done, and this is, it's so awesome to be in this time period where like I literally got the machine sim running and just went back through and started applying that machine and that stack up to parts I've already programmed and run in the Hermla.
Yeah.
And just looking for over travels and like collisions or anything. And so like I know for a fact I'll need 120 millimeter holders for any tools shorter than I think my 1/4 inch standard.
Yeah.
Which is not a problem. The 120 millimeter PG10s are like my go-to in the Hermla. And so that's what I was planning on doing for the U anyway. And then otherwise, like I have not seen a Y-axis over travel yet. It has all been Z-axis limits that I've hit. And then I've had to apply a longer holder.
Yeah.
But everything else has worked.
Ooh.
And I'm like, Sweet.
You're like, fuck.
So now it's like, okay, I want to go up. I want to test some code, make sure that, it doesn't just like absolutely shit the bed trying to do a real 5-axis thing.
Right. Because the W's the 4+1.
The U was 4+1. Now it is full 5.
Okay. That's what
so we would be buying the full 5. So it's got whatever their, tool center point control G code is.
It's the same. It's FANUC G43.4. Just basing it on because fucking Devin Lycan has the M.
Yeah.
And I would assume that it operates the same way.
It's the same. Yeah.
So
same exact control.
Then it's like the G43.3.
Oh, okay.
43.4 or whatever.
Sure.
Because G54.2 is like dynamic fixture offset if you do like center of rotation programming.
Oh, okay.
Stuff.
Okay. That makes more sense.
So you have G68.2 tilted work planes.
Right.
And then G54.2 dynamic work offsets, or fixture offsets is what they call it. Then 54.4, which I don't know if Brother has that, which is the WSEC stuff, which gives you an additional axis of adjustment. So if you have like your AC machine would have a B axis adjustment.
Oh, that's interesting. The Hermla has that. But I don't think that the Brother does.
Yeah, so then it does like, if I'm shifting here, it does like additional like AC or BC moves to
interpolate that third rotary,
which is like crazy. That's like so much math. Like,
that's plain spatial on Heidenhain. Like you could give it SPA, B, and C values, and like you can give the Hermla an SPB value, and it'll rotate A and C to get to there.
Oh, I have a good one for this. Like, real quick, is that these guys, like one of my best customers right now is like I just program for them, gun stuff, Pennsylvania, like robo drill, easy peasy, and they call me like. And this is like the worst part about doing work like East Coast, West Coast is like I'm getting calls at like 5:30 in the morning, and it's like, oh, hold on, give me like 1 minute, and they're like, it just won't go past like when it's trying to do this, it just won't work. Like trying to like get the height just like was like freezing on the height offset. And it's like, oh, that's interesting. And like we're chatting, and I'm like, I didn't change anything. Like, and this is like the code looks fine. And I'm like, oh, but it looks like my work offset is wrong. So we got to fix that. And like, what I didn't know until they were doing stuff is like, we were having this conversation while the machine was just like frozen in cycle. They never reset it. And I'm like, check your WSEC table. And they're like, oh, yeah, there's a value in the A. I'm like, oh, that might be it. So, like, write that down and, like, zero it out and we'll see what happens. And while I'm on the phone with one guy, the other guy just fucking zeroes it while the machine's in cycle and just fucking sent the probe, and just blew the tip up because I was like, what just happened? And he's like, I broke the probe. And I'm like, the whole probe? Like the body hit, and he's like, and like I hate this part because it's like you keep saying probe, but like was it the body?
Yeah, probe or probe tip,
He's
buddy.
like, it hit, and I'm like, what hit? Like you need to tell me right now what hit. Like, and that was like really annoying.
Yeah,
because then the next thing I got is like a text and an email from the COO like, how did that happen? And do you carry insurance in case of like catastrophic failure? And it's like, I mean, this like how it happened is like there's two things that happened. Is like one, my work offset was wrong, so it was going to the wrong spot. Two, they were fucking around like with the offset with the shit they shouldn't have been fucking around with, and while the machine was in cycle, and they would have caught what happened had it not been in cycle. But like it was both people's faults. Like, I mean, I use Campley, but Campley doesn't catch shit like that.
Right.
Unfortunately. And so, like, but we're fine, like, it's all good. And, like, after, it's kind of interesting because I was like, oh, my God, this is, like, so bad. And then, like, I don't know, like last week, they're like, I'm like, are we good? They're like, you're giving us programs faster than we can get from our own guys that are in the building. You can turn things around faster. Like basically all this stuff. This is what the guys I was telling you were like, they they pulled work away from their programmer because he wasn't getting it done. I turned it around and did it in like half the ops and half the time. And then the shit that he programmed, they like gave it back to me. and I was like, oh, but dude, but yeah, the whole WSEC thing.
I'm surprised that the machine reacted to a live editing. You would think that they would block that out.
That was also really bizarre. I was like, this is kind of fucked up. Like, I'm shocked that it happened, but I don't know. What it probably was that because it wasn't in like an actual BC move, and that value was in the A, it was trying to move the B and the C for it to go. And like, as soon as that was out, it didn't need to rotate anymore. So it just fucking went.
Frustrating. Very frustrating.
Yeah.
But yeah, besides that, shop's been good. We've just been kind of focusing on improving little things here and there. I got that new tool cabinet. I actually bought a second one because when I first bought it, I measured it and thought I could only fit one under the table with the tools on it. And then it came in, I assembled it, put it under there and measured it again. And I was like, oh, I can put a second one of these.
Let's go.
Yeah, sweet.
Yeah.
Still waiting on the grid line stuff because turns out if had I placed the order through my rep,
right,
he would have caught it and swapped it over to air freight. Mm-hmm. But anything ordered from that line of products online, and it starts with like a certain number, automatically ships sea freight.
Okay.
Despite it fitting in like a very small air freight box.
So like sea as in like ocean?
As in like 2 to 3 month lead time. So my grid line's on the way.
Yeah.
Now that I got that second one, I'm half debating. I don't know. I keep going back and forth because I don't want to get like $1,500 in the grid line and then get it and hate it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I called him and asked him, and he was like, oh yeah, if you order a duplicate set of everything, it'll be here in a week. And I was like, well, I could split it then between the two and have like six, three drawers in each that are all set up. And then when the other one comes in, I can fix, so I don't know. But anyway, I'm very excited.
Yeah.
Having real nice drawers is fantastic. And there's like room for everything. And the tool area in general is a lot more organized and working well. Yeah, just little stuff. Added a full-size table to where we had all our deburring tools. Like we had just a little cart.
Yeah.
Swap that out for a table. Now I can actually sit down and my NSK grinder is like already set up. And, the drawers have new and used Scotch-Brite and sanding sticks and, files and all that stuff.
Ethan would be proud.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those things that you like, you do it and you're like, oh, I'm so excited about it. I want to brag about it. And you're like, this is day one stuff. Like it should have already been done. So it's hard to get excited about.
That's true.
But anyway, things are going really well. It's awesome. Like
we're just crushing, and I mean, you're just obviously like crushing so hard, and it's like so cool. Like
I'm glad that that's what it looks like.
Yeah.
It constantly feels like I'm just running around with my head on fire.
I mean, to be fair, those things like aren't mutually exclusive,
right?
But
it's hard for me to have the perspective to step back and go, we're doing really well.
Yeah.
When really, like, I just, I'm feeling much better though after the trip and kind of taking a breath and stepping back into it.
I need to do this more.
Yeah. It was both. I think I told you in text because you asked me, you're like, oh, is this something that you want to do all the time now? Like this, is it hard to go back? And I was like, actually, no, I really missed the shop and I missed working and I really love what we do. And I love, feeling mastery over something.
Yeah.
But it made me realize like, okay, this is something I need to do from time to time, at least.
Yeah. I just thought about like the mastery over something. If you were like, I think you could become a sailor.
Actually,
I need to get back out on the water.
Boats is my new thing.
You're like, I didn't tell you about a houseboat.
Right, yeah.
Like, I'm going to fucking...
I'm moving to Page, actually. I'm done with Prodium. Like,
Oh, no.
I'm going to live on the water for the rest of my life.
Fucking tow a decrepit houseboat behind the fucking Ford.
Right. So, things are going really well. We're just, slowly developing more processes, adding more standard tools to the Hermla, working on templates, working on all that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going well. It's going really well.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah, I think that fingers crossed everything checks out with the U, and adding a second 5-axis will be killer because it'll give Brad some spindle time with a 5-axis that I think is a little closer to what he's used to. He hasn't had a chance or time really to go to training for Hermla, and so he only knows about what I've shown him on Heidenhain, and had I not gone to training, I would feel incredibly hesitant to run that machine. And I did feel hesitant even going to training. Right. And so I think the fact that if we get it, we'll have a second machine that is so close to what we currently have, it'll be great. And having, machine sim, especially since the worst part of the U is that the trunnion biases away from you. Like it's 120 degrees away from you.
Yeah.
And only 30 towards you.
Whoa.
So
the fuck?
You're just machining on the dark side of the moon all the time. Right. So I'm very glad that I have machine sim set up.
That's so bizarre.
Yeah.
What a fucking wild ass thing to do.
I think it's likely for clearances because I think that platter on the U is fairly big.
Yeah.
And so getting it up under the spindle, like even with the very thin spindle housings that the brothers have, it would mean that you would have to have, 10-inch long tools to get down to center line or something.
Yeah. That would be fucking wild.
Yeah. It makes sense.
Yeah. Speaking of wild ass 5-axes, Graham and I were talking about this Akuma. I can't remember the fucking model, but it's crazy thin. Have you seen these?
Yes. You can stack them together and have them pass parts between them.
And you're looking at this thing and it's how the fuck does this work? And then you look at it and you're oh, this thing must suck. Well, it just, and I think it's it has to suck because they're not.
I think it's one of those 5-axes that was made and you buy it for a specific part. It is not it's not a job shop 5-axis.
Yeah.
It is my guess is it's probably for automotive.
That's exactly. I'm that thing looks like it's great at drilling holes.
Yeah. Do you need to make 1 million alternator housings? Yeah. Boom. There you go. Or, something like that.
Yeah. Because you look at it and you're you can put a big ass part in there, but they're not very rigid. And then you look at it and you're yeah, of course not. The trunnion, because it's an AC machine or... No, it's a BC machine.
Is it?
Yeah, it's a BC machine, and the trunnion is right at the door.
Right.
And the whole trunnion is the x-axis, so it moves.
Oh, so you even lose a little bit more rigidity.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, and it's that is it right there.
I think Makino makes a very similar one as well. My guess is they're all fighting for that automotive.
Yazda makes something similar too. Yeah. I mean, not that thin, but the whole where the trunnion moves.
You know what I saw last night? We were talking on the Insta Machinist Discord about. Somebody put some prices, you got some machines quoted, and a few of them were Doosan's, and we were talking about pricing on Doosan's. And so I guess DN Solutions, sorry.
Yeah.
I ended up on their website, and there's a machine on there that I've never seen before.
Okay.
Called the FN200 Linear.
Oh.
And this is another one that I'm fairly certain is product specific because it is a HSK 40 machine, 42,000 RPM.
Okay.
Linear motors,
right?
Heidenhain, only in Heidenhain, only 24 tools.
Whoa.
And it has an 8-inch X travel or something like that.
That is insane.
And then they show it with a big material handling robot. It is super bizarre. I'm kind of hoping that it's at IMTS though, just so I can see it because it's enough of an oddball machine that I just want to poke at it and
what the fuck is this thing all about?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But another one of those bizarre ones. It's got to be with such a small envelope. It's got to be very product specific. Maybe it's to go after the watch market that Kern's in and other companies are in.
Yeah. That's one of those things where it's Doosan must be getting somebody but I don't, if you're in that market, it's you probably have the money for the Kern or maybe not, or I don't know.
Dude, it's just so weird. It's very strange to me that it's HSK
Yeah.
And that, they were so against, like, they offered HSK on the DVF,
Yeah.
but like they kind of were like, oh, don't buy that option. And then they offered Heidenhain on the DVFs, and they're like, yeah, don't buy that option.
Right. Like,
And supposedly
fucks up our pipeline, dude.
Yeah. Supposedly Heidenhain's more common, I guess, on the DVFs now.
Yeah.
Someone said that their IMTS list says both the DVF 5000 and then the DVF 5000 Gen 2 is going to be at IMTS. So who knows what that means?
Yeah, it doesn't suck now.
I mean, I don't know. I really don't know. Doosan was really high on my list of like potential first 5-axis for us. And then they kind of shit the bed at IMTS. It was so hard to get somebody to talk to me. And then every question I asked, they're like, we don't really, like, you don't want a Heidenhain one. You don't really want an HSK one. It's like, well, actually, I want both of those options. So,
right.
No?
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's jump into the questions, dude. We've got a ton of them. All right. Ethan asked,
that's a good one,
from the Patreon, I'm curious what you both, as highly technical and very real, read not in the digital world of social media, problem solvers, think about LinkedIn warriors, YouTube shorts, titans of CNC, and similar content creators and how they impact the folks joining the industry. Similarly, how do you think maker spaces of modern era positively and negatively impact young people joining the trades in terms of their self-perceived versus actual skill levels and confidence? What I'm getting at with these questions is the beastification of manufacturing.
Yeah.
Very good question.
I've been thinking about this since I saw it, you know, and I'm like, because I was just on, the Manufacturing Happy Hour podcast, which is like very LinkedIn focused. And when we were talking before we recorded about LinkedIn or whatever, and I'm like, it's kind of like masturbatory,
100%.
And it's like, it's what I would, I think a lot of people would call it this is just like performative professionalism, where it's just a bunch of people like pretending to be professionals. I don't know if it's come up on here or whatever, but like when I met up with Nush in Boston when we were both there, and I had that fucking Dare sweatshirt on, it says like dare me to do all the drugs, and like she fucking posted that, and I was like, yeah, it's fine, whatever. And like most people were like, yeah,
right.
And then one guy was like, I can't believe you like mentor, really? And it's like, dude, what we do on a fucking Sunday with our friends is what is our business. Like, also the kind of like, I guess, ironic thing about it is like, I'm stone cold sober, baby.
Right, exactly. That was the funniest part for me was that, he was coming down on somebody he didn't know for wearing that shirt. And you're like, dude, I just thought it was funny. Like, that's it.
It is funny. I was on a plane recently too, and like the me to do all the drugs part was like hidden, and the flight attendant was like, we need more of that in schools. And it's like, I don't think so. Yeah.
I'd wait until I stand up, but sure, okay.
Right. But yeah, I don't know. Like, I thought it was like that episode was really interesting because I like listened to a lot of it, and it is like very LinkedIn-esque with like people are like very professional, and like it's very cool, and there is good information. This one was about CNC stuff, and it kind of like, well, like I felt, I guess like honored or whatever, because it's a 47-minute episode. I was like 2/3 of it, which felt weird, but like sick. And because he's like, we're going to do 15 minutes. And I was like, 15 minutes? I don't think I've ever talked so little in my life. Like, dude.
You're like, I don't know how to talk for 15 minutes.
So I was like, I was zooming and like doing whatever. But anyway, like I was like the thing that he said at the end, because I was the last one to record, was he's like, you're like, that was very pragmatic, because like, and I don't mean this to like disparage Nush or Danny or whatever, but like they were talking about like marketing themselves and stuff, and like that's not a bad thing. Like, you do need to market yourself. It's just like for the context of the episode, it was like the message was about like, oh, this is what like trade schools aren't going to tell you or whatever, and it's like. And in terms of like the CNC machining aspect of it is like, yeah, marketing yourself is like fine. It's like, it is something that you kind of need to do, but like, what like a really fucking good way to do that is just be fucking good. Like,
and just learn. Like,
yeah, and like
learn everything.
Yeah, and just like learn, absorb, and crush. Like just like keep pushing forward, and like that is the marketing of yourself. Is like you don't need to like go around like running around about like the gamification of CNC or like fucking we need like all these CNC warriors or whatever. And it's like, yeah, I mean, I get it. It's kind of fucking like it's true. We do need that shit, but also like, could you be like less cringy about it and just like it feels less inclusive than what they're trying to do.
Right.
It's like it's like you're trying to include people, but it also doesn't come across that way. Like we need all these people to come in here and like, but it's like branded. Everything's fucking branded, which is fine, but it's like it doesn't have to be fucking branded.
Right.
Just be like, we need more people in the industry. Like we can do this, we can do that. Like a lot of my customers that I program for instance, like I go and I'm like the guys in Pennsylvania, the dude on the second shift is their only guy. And I'm like, do you want me to fucking, I was like, I think I can make you into me, you know, which is like, I mean, not to toot my own horn, but like, it's like for what you're doing here, I can make you a good programmer. And I asked his boss, I'm like, you want me to make him a good programmer? Like, you want to pay him? I'll go out there and we'll do it. And they're like, yes. Like, and that's what we need,
right.
You know, like just make people good and
yeah.
like give people the resources to be good. Like,
well, and I would break up those. Like, I think that
there's a lot of shit going
LinkedIn stuff
on.
is very separate from like the YouTube Shorts and Titans of CNC content.
Big time.
I think that they annoy me for very similar reasons sometimes.
Yes.
Because they feel very false and forced.
Well, that and like I thought it was like very prescient because like the most like that I texted you just like yesterday I think about the new Titan, like the very recent Titan video where like everything it was always like speed like fucking 800 inches a minute blah
break
blah
your machine
and then this one like the message was just slightly different which is like, I'm not saying to run your machine like this. I'm just saying, you know, maybe you can like look at what you have and run faster and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, there has to be some influence over the fact that he's selling machines now. And like people, I mean, like, obviously I'm guessing, but like if you sell, like if you're him selling machines, like if people are buying machines from him, they're going to be like, I mean, there's other people we hear about talk like, I want to run my machine like him because he does it and like it's just so fast and they're so innovative. And it's like he gets fucking free tools and he advocates for you, like in some videos, advocates for using a fucking end mill per part because it makes you more money.
Right.
But he's not making any money other than the video.
Well, we've literally watched tools in the cut slowly pull out of his spindles,
Right.
like the tool holders.
Right. Yeah.
There was a DVF video, I think it was.
Probably. Yeah.
There's one where he like is taking this full slot cut, and you can watch the tool holder kind of wallow around in the spindle taper.
Fucking sold it as new, probably.
Dude,
but like that shit is like, and it was interesting to see like now that he's selling, and like I mean it's like correlation or causation thing of being like, well, I'm not saying that this is how you should run it, but like, you know, maybe take a look at what your stuff is capable of and like, can you push harder and whatever. And I'm like, oh my God, that's like an actual practical message.
Right.
But where before it's like, just run everything as fast as possible, which is like, dude, like I appreciate that stuff from getting people interested. Like the YouTube Shorts and Titans of CNC like get people interested in the trade.
Right.
Which is good. But like you also kind of want to like pull them out of that, like pull people out of that once they're interested as quickly as you can. Like and like to like just prevent them from like trying to do things like, I don't know, like, oh, I'm cutting stainless and I want to run my end mill like 700 surface foot or whatever. And it's like, I keep blowing up end mills. It's like, you're too fast. I need to run fast. And you're like,
right.
Okay, then fucking blow up end mills, dude. I don't know.
Well, and I think that like, I think deep down, I think a lot of the Titan stuff is very good for the industry. I think it is doing more good than harm.
Right.
But what I don't like about it is I think it puts the pedestals in the wrong order. It's putting brand first. Like if we're looking at like Maslow's pyramid of, you know, CNC needs.
Yeah.
It's putting like brand at the top.
Yeah.
And then like, oh, tool holder, blah, 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 like the actual terms down at the bottom.
Right.
And so people come across as like, I need to machine this with a Harvey 1 TE, not I need a end mill that does these kind of things, and this is what I need to look for in a few different catalogs until I find what I need.
Yeah.
And so they're not learning the basis behind those choices. They're just they're like, these are badass tools because Titan said so, or because I saw it full slot at 4,000 inches a minute, you know?
Yeah, cutting a straight line really fast.
Right.
Like, okay.
Yeah, and I think that is when you get people who are so brand blind that they can't innovate. They can't get out that it puts them in a corner very prematurely, I think.
Right.
So like that I don't like, but I do love that like there's more content from him, and especially like all his free stuff that's still out there.
He has
it's amazing.
School, and like you can like take classes and like learn shit. Like he is good for the industry overall.
Yeah.
But like you can also browse his shit and take some like really fucked up things away from that.
Oh
like
yeah.
you said. Yeah.
But he's added also some people that I really like to his team. Like Donnie, the Swiss guy is I will openly, like every time I see a video with him drop it, I'm like, oh sweet, I'm watching that. It's something I have no idea about. So I always learn something new.
Yeah.
And he's got such a down to earth way of just like, hey, here's the information. Here's how we're going to tackle it. Let's get to it. You know, like there's no grandiosity.
Yeah.
Grandiousness.
Right. Yeah. Cause that's like it's just the cringe shit, you know?
Right.
Where it's like, can you just give me the message.
Just chill, yeah.
Yeah, like that's kind of the Mr. Beastification of it all, which is like these clickbaity ass titles and whatever else, and you're like, dude, come on.
Yeah, but like overall, I think that these are the kind of people that we need to bring kids into the fold. Because like you ask, my wife's a teacher. You ask like half her class what they want to be, and they're like, oh, I want to be a YouTuber, and they spend hours on YouTube.
Yeah.
And all it will take is for them to see a Titan short or something of like, oh, that looks sweet. I want to look into that more, you know?
Yeah. I think the second phase of that is having like just, I mean, more people, like I guess more teachers. I don't know, like because there's a potential disconnect. I mean, Fusion, you can get Fusion for free, which is really nice. And like that is kind of like the positive of the makerspace is if you see Titans of CNC and you're like, oh, that's cool. I wish does he use Fusion? He doesn't use Fusion.
Not anymore.
No.
Yeah.
Which is like, if he still used Fusion, that would be like baller. Cause like you see that, you see Fusion, and like you can go to a makerspace and they probably have a mill that you just have to like go sit through a class that's like, hey, don't touch it while it's spinning, kind of thing. And
no end mills in a drill chuck, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And then like just be able to like make parts. And I think generally like maker spaces are very positive, you know? But like, I mean, you do also run into like these fucking mega nerds that are like talking to me, like they don't know me. So like, they're just like, oh, this is how you cut. And it's like, right. Yeah. Okay. And it's like, this guy fucking doesn't know what he's talking about. But in terms of the skills, like, people think that they're, I mean, it happens all the time, you know? Like, you get good at something or, like, you think you're good at something, and now you're, like, depending on your personality, you're going around like, well, this is, like, oh, I've cut a part, so I'm an expert now. And I'm just going to fucking tell people how to do this forever and fucking hop on Reddit and go wild. And that's like, I guess that's like the whole weird navigation of like all of that is what information is good and what information is bad. And like that is, I mean, a totally separate aspect of the question is like being able to, I guess that is that like pedagogy or whatever, like the ability to learn is like, it's so hard to discern like if you didn't know like what if Titan stuff was good and what if Titan stuff was bad and like what if like this like some fucking guy at a makerspace who's like just speaking very confidently to you about how to cut stuff and you're like, well, it made a part, right?
Right, yeah.
Like,
I followed what he said and I made a part and I didn't hurt myself and I didn't hurt the machine.
But it's like
he must be right.
Right. And like it and like you can build like very bad habits that way and whatever else and like really hamstring and like sometimes it is like very difficult to deprogram from certain aspects. Like for me, like not related to that, but like in terms of deprogramming is like I was like a huge UR robot hater because of the time that I spent at Methods.
Right.
And like, oh, collaborative robots are fucking trash. Like UR sucks. Yellow robots are the best, whatever. And like now, like I don't get like, it's like, oh, what an asshole I was. Because, I mean, I've been doing a lot of work with Grim, and, like, I know for a fucking fact with, like, the Lights Out stuff or the Rapid, I was, like, I looked down on it a ton, like, early on, like, UR sucks, but now we've been, like, working a lot together and, like, seeing what they can do, and it's, like, they just inherently can, like, probe, you know? You can use it as a probe and, like, find stuff, and, like, it's, like, oh, that is, like, so sick, and, like, push a button and like just move the fucking thing around and all this other shit and like just picks up where it is, and it's like, no, this is sick.
Right.
Like it's so dope, and like you can get away with a lot less stuff, and like, but it took like from when I stopped working at Methods to working with like Lights Out and to now, it was like a fucking 5-year period. And it took a long time for me to get there.
But I think that the core of what you just said, and I think one of the most important things that maybe is very hard to come across in like LinkedIn and YouTube is understanding that this trade is constantly changing and that you will be wrong.
Right.
There is no more guarantee in this trade than one of your deeply held beliefs will be proven wrong.
Oh, absolutely.
And if you don't change with it, that is like the worst possible thing.
Yeah.
Like that is how you become that dinosaur teacher that you hated in trade school or whatever.
100%. And like, yeah, the dinosaur trade, yeah, that stuff, like that's such a massive question. I love it so much, but it's, yeah. 'Cause like the LinkedIn stuff, like you see a lot of like manufacturing influencers that don't seem like they make anything ever.
Right.
Which is like interesting. They advocate for manufacturing, which is good. And I guess like because we like make stuff, like to his point, like real world problem solvers, like that shit seems like kind of cringe sometimes because it's like, dude, like you're not fucking like how can you speak on this sometimes? Like, you know what I mean? Like you feel like what the fuck is going on here? Like how are you speaking like intelligently about this? Like you don't make shit, you haven't made shit in like a long time, but like yet you have this giant ass platform,
right?
Like telling people stuff, and it's like it's kind of mind blowing in a way.
It is strange, and I really have to step out of my own viewpoint sometimes and kind of get away from that, because like that is my initial gut instinct too when I see that stuff is like, what do you know? Like what are you talking about?
Yeah,
but also I like every time I say that, all I can think of is when you're driving around on a weekday, like you have the day off randomly, and you hit traffic, and you're like, where the fuck are all you going? Go back to work. And then you're like, I'm not at work either.
Yes,
you know, like, so.
Yeah, it's like you're mad at traffic, but you are the traffic type of thing.
Yeah.
And like that, but like it's just such a bizarre place. Like it's all so bizarre because like, I mean, LinkedIn's a great place to like network and talk, and like talking to Chris and like doing that podcast, like he's fucking great. I mean, like what he's doing is good, and like his is interesting because like you have these like very like it's all of manufacturing. So like some of those episodes are like, what the fuck am I even listening to? And like some of the space with like automation, like food automation and all this other bullshit, that's like I don't think about that ever. And it's like an interesting viewpoint. He had one episode like in like 20 episodes ago or something where he had like an investment banker or like a capital equipment banker on there.
Oh,
and that was like, in my opinion, his best episode.
Oh, really?
Like it was just like, I mean, it was like such an interesting, it was just like such a different look of the industry from what I'm used to. You know
Makes
what I mean?
sense. Yeah.
Like, oh, that's fucking cool.
That is super cool.
And so shit like that, but I don't know, man. It's fucking tough because shit's cringe. Like, it's cringe as hell. It's like people, like, I like to see people make stuff. Like, I fucking don't really enjoy, like, clickbait-ass titles and, like, weird-ass videos and, like, whatever. Like, I mean, I go in and out of LinkedIn. I've been, like, I was on it for a while, but then, like, when I start working, then I fucking don't think about it because daddy has real parts to make. Like, you know?
Yeah, LinkedIn is definitely the lowest social media on the totem pole for me. Mm-hmm. It is where all of my posts from Instagram end up eventually.
Right.
But like, it's not my first post ever, for sure. All right, next up, David Ron asked, do y'all think macro programming is as important now as it used to be with how much CAM systems have come along? Are they as useful to average programmers today as they used to be? Or are they really just for specialists like Zap doing weird automation projects?
Kind of. Like, I do think there are certain, like, are they important? No. I mean, well, let me rephrase. Like, I guess it depends on what you're considering a macro program, because like every probe is a macro program.
Right.
So like, are they important? Yeah. Do you need to know what it does? No, not really. Are you trying to do some trick ass shit like what he's talking about? Like, then they're cool. But for the most part, you can get away with not knowing anything. Like most people can get away with not knowing shit about macros. But you could also like, oh, I need to write like a serial engraving macro or like program. Like that's a good use of macros, you know. But you could like bury it in like a custom G code or something like that. But I don't know. I would say generally probably no. Like almost everybody that comes to me that's like, I want to learn macros, they don't actually have a use to learn it. Right. Or used to use it. They just like want to learn it, and it's like, but why? Like why? Like here's like, I give you a bunch of resources, but like if you're not going to use them, then it's like, it's just like there. You know, I mean, I've said that a shitload on here. I know that for sure.
I think it depends on where on that scale you want to end up and where on that scale you end up. You know, if you're button pushing, definitely not. Like, you don't need to know that. But yeah, if you're a higher level programmer and trying to do even just some like mild trick stuff, like you're going to want to know it. Or even just debugging probing. Like if you are the one probing a lot and writing probing stuff and like things go wrong, you either need to wait for your machine tool builder, or you can just dive in and go, okay, this is setting to that. Oh, that value is wrong. Cool. Let me fix that. Easy peasy, you know? So like, it just depends, I think. It's a kind of I guess a cop-out answer, but it just depends on how much you want to do. Like, it's so powerful. It's still powerful.
It's very
like,
powerful.
CAM can't do a lot of the things that macros do. And the ways CAM systems do the powerful stuff is still through macros. It's just in your post.
Right.
So.
Exactly.
Yeah. This one's for you 100% because I have no idea. Brian Head asked thoughts and tips on programming dual channel, twin spindle, and twin turret in Fusion.
Not going to lie. No fucking idea. Never done it.
All right. Well, I'm glad I'm not the only one.
Yeah.
Then.
But I mean, like, the way that I think about it would be you would have multiple setups, you know? I mean, like, you would, like, my initial thought, just because of the way, like, Fusion just doesn't handle multi-channel shit very well right now.
Right.
So you'd probably have, like, my guess would be, like, you would have 4 setups, more or less, like, upper left, upper right, lower left, lower right, and then fucking maybe make all those setups like an NC program, or like you'd have
some real janky post or like a hand editing or something.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it wouldn't be the craziest thing, but like the sequencing would be wonky. Yeah. I think that would be like the hardest thing to get around is like you could essentially I'm just like kind of like fucking spitballing here based off of what I think it would be just after using like the Fusion to do like a single channel is like my gut would be I would probably do a different setup. Like this sounds kind of fucking wild, but like I would probably do like a different setup. Like if I'm doing upper left, then upper right, then upper left again, I'd probably go setup, setup, setup. so that I can sequence it correctly when I post, instead of doing like just upper and just lower, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Like just left and just right, because like you want to be able to bounce. The hardest thing, like always, is the weight codes, and the only one that does that really really well is Esprit, because you can do it all in Esprit. And like even Mastercam has the Milturn module, but you have to go to like this separate fucking thing with Code Expert, and when you post, then you do it in your G code or whatever. It's fucking annoying.
Right.
But yeah, so that's all I got. I don't know.
Yeah, sorry, Brian.
Yeah.
Ben at Fort Manufacturing asked, interested in hearing about pallet pools versus robots for large parts, like 25 by 4 by 2 inches. A Miteco versus question mark?
Yeah.
Something that's a step up from Haas with support in Nebraska.
A pallet pool for parts that big would be like tough. That's fucking huge. Kind of huge. But maybe, I mean, like you're almost like talking about like a Fastums at that point.
Right.
Or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, Miteco would do it, I guess.
Yeah.
Like a shuttle kind of system.
Right.
Haas has now their Miteco. I mean, I guess you said a step up from Haas. So they have their like, what, 3 or 4 pallet pool for the VF4s?
Yeah, that's like the whole table.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is like a
oh my God.
Fucking wild.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough one. Like, it's a really, like, I don't know really how to answer it, because I have a lot. I mean, I just have more questions for the question, which is like, why a step up from a Haas? Like, what's the
right? Do you need more accuracy?
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Like, what's the quantity of these parts? Like, is this like all repeat work, or is it like one-off stuff or whatever? Because and that 25 by 4 by 2, is that like aluminum or is that steel?
Right. Because aluminum, you could potentially load that with the larger URs, even, right?
Yeah. I mean, they're just coming at like what is coming, like what the IMTS project is, like we're using the UR30.
Right.
Because that's brand ass new.
Yeah.
Even though like we don't need it.
That's what, 60 something pounds, 66?
Like 70?
Yeah.
70 pounds, which is like, that's
a lot.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like, yeah, it's cool. But yeah, I don't know, like 25 by 4 by 2 is not like nutty, but if that's steel or whatever, like you're going to have a bad time.
Yeah.
No matter what. So my thoughts are, give me more information and like DM me.
Right.
And then we'll talk about it some more.
Yeah. All right. NYDLS 30 asked, talk about IMTS plans, programming templates, toolpath.com, and Lang 0-point systems, and why someone invested into fifth axis would justify switching.
Well, IMTS plans, that's easy. I'll be there for like 2 weeks, like 1 week for setup and 1 week for the show.
You leave soon. Like,
yes, yeah, it is coming up quick.
Yeah,
because
I'm already starting to feel anxious, and I'm only there for 1 week, so I'll be there Sunday night through Thursday night. Big things that I have on the agenda: definitely playing in the Toolpath cornhole tournament at some point. It sounds like they're doing kind of a sign up, so you just sign up for a time and play against some people. Definitely the big thing: Instant Machinist.
Right.
With Intolerance Kern meetup at the Kern booth Wednesday, 3 p.m. Be there. Last time was absolutely insane, the amount of people. Otherwise, I don't know. I'm just going to have fun. I got things to look at. I'm definitely looking at CMMs. I'm looking at the U500, looking at other small 5-axis machines. So yeah, that's the big things I have IMTS-wise. Chris and I are definitely going to be recording.
Like every fucking day.
Yeah, I think we're going to do a little kind of roundup every day. Potentially pull some people in and do some special episodes kind of stuff.
Yeah, and like we'll fight the other podcasters in the booth. That's for sure happening.
Yeah.
It's a brawl.
That was next to the cornhole, right?
Yeah.
It was like podcast jousting and then cornhole and
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. We got to fight for the booth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's going to be a ton of fun. Let's see. I can talk with some expertise about the Lang stuff. I've only used a little bit of the fifth axis stuff. It seems okay, I think, for this same price, if not in some cases cheaper. Lang is just much better quality all around and a much more diverse ecosystem.
Right.
It has so much more in it. Like they have the Ultra Vices now for big parts. They've got all the 52 stuff. They've got all the 96 stuff. Plates in every kind of situation you could possibly want. They now have the 46 stuff as well, I believe. That's a half a 90, 92, 96? No,
like a 48.
48, I guess it
So
would
it's
have
like
been.
even smaller.
Yeah, you can fit. There's a 52 to 48 riser. Maybe it's even smaller than that. Anyway, you can fit 3 of these micro vices onto a 52 pallet.
Whoa.
They're super cool.
That is cool. Oh, is that the 2-pull stud thing?
Yes.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
That is fucking rad. Yeah, fifth axis in general, like, I don't know, unimpressed. Like, super unimpressed. Like, for instance, like, I'm not gonna, like, this is just like facts at this point, which is like, Lights Out used to do, like, we had the Lights Out pallet system at X2 for a while, and they used the 5th axis pneumatic shit, and they switched to shunk because, one, it was fucking way cheaper to go with the shunk, like, which is crazy, and the 5th axis stuff is just like so inconsistent that, like, they would get sticky. It would get sticky and fucking, like, wouldn't pull the pallet or whatever, and it's just like so dumb. And like I have lately seen, like, the 5th axis shit is not cheap. Like, no, it's not. But people think it is.
It used to be cheaper than
it used to be.
It used to be significantly cheaper, and that was the cool thing. It was like, oh, it's made in America. Yeah. It's cheaper. Why wouldn't I buy it? And then you kind of look into it. Like, I had a 5th axis master pallet that I swapped the studs out for Lang because I was like, oh, it's cheaper than the Lang one.
Right.
Dialed everything in, used it for a few years, swapped to a Lang one, and I was like, oh, my 4th axis plate is a thou TIR off center now. I guess it wasn't where it was supposed to be.
Right.
And, like, granted, you're not supposed to switch studs, blah, 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 or like on their master pallets, but just from what I've seen and what I've heard, there was a rash of pull studs breaking in a bunch of people's fixtures that they replaced.
Wicked jaw lift.
Their new vice, I'm happy to be proven wrong, but it just doesn't seem like they were like, oh, we optimized for weight.
Right.
Which I understand with robots, but it's like you already had
a pallet system.
But like also you already had a vice known for bad jaw lift and kind of being weak, and then you made it weaker.
Right.
Like that to me just doesn't scream quality.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm right there with you. Is like, I'm more than happy to give it a shot. I will fucking try anything. Yeah. Like, my closest one right now is these fucking jackwagons asked me to make these stupid ass jaws for them that I was like, I don't think this is gonna work, but you guys do, so I'll make them. And then they didn't fucking work, and it's like, what's happening is what I thought was gonna happen, but like, but like, why not? You know? Like, you wanted it. Like, I don't know.
You want to pay for it?
Yeah.
Sure.
I don't care. Yeah. Like, I don't think it's gonna work for XYZ reason, and XYZ reason came true. But like on that, it's like, yeah. I mean, I'll throw some parts. Yeah. I don't mind.
And honestly, I think there's other vices out there that are better in many regards. I think the shunk vices have significantly more clamping force than a Lang vice of similar size.
Yeah.
The mate stuff looks awesome.
I really do like the mate stuff.
Yeah, it's great. But I think that the reason I'm going to stick with Lang is the ecosystem. Like the fact that I can get a stamping unit, and like so I don't need double the amount of gripping force because I already have that mechanically with the stamp. Like it's stuff like that. It's the fact that I can buy.
It's the Apple model. They got your ass.
They got my ass good.
You know what I found out recently on like the 0 point stuff is like Shunk has like the I don't know if we talked about this, but like Shunk has like the 96 and 52 millimeter shit in Europe, but they like for some reason won't bring it here.
Well, I think it's because the market's already so flooded.
Yeah.
Like to compete with Lang and 5th axis and mate and all that.
There has been, like, from what I understand though, like talking to Shunk people, like the customers are like, who are like, I don't want to deal with Lang, essentially, because like Lang is good shit, but Lang is like, they know it.
Yeah,
you know, like
they're also not the best to order from.
Yeah, and like Shunk is great. Like Shunk stuff's good, and like people are like, I want to use the Shunk stuff, and I guess like somebody at Shunk is like, it's Vero S or nothing, and it's crazy.
Yeah,
like that's kind of insane.
Well, it's surprising too, because the thing that 4-stud 0 point gives you is stack height. Like the Vero S's are thick boys.
Yeah,
you know, like
yeah. There's a part that we're doing on this project where we can't use the Vero S stuff, like because when we designed all the fixturing and the fixturing was ordered, we had like 2 parts of the 20, and it's like, well, and they're like, well, this is the biggest part, and it was big. I mean, it was like 22 inches tall by like 10 inches wide or something like that. But the other part that's like actually big is like a 4.5 inch by 4.5 inch by 4.5 inch cube. So it's like really tall, and we can't swing it. So like I talked around today. I like definitely talked around that with the owner and was like, we're going to get pretty much everything done this week. And I think John's coming back next week, but like to do this part, and that part's just a little bit different. It's going to break the format of what we're doing for the other things, which is like a really roundabout way of saying we're not putting that on a fucking Shunk.
Right. Yeah.
Like that'll just have a tombstone dedicated to itself. But I mean, it's good. I mean, like, but because it's like 60 millimeters tall or something like that before you even put the fucking plate on there.
Yeah.
So you stick out pretty far.
It's like 3 Lang plates almost thick.
Yes. Yeah, because
like,
those are 27 millimeters, right?
so I guess it's more like 2.
Yeah,
but even
yeah,
then, that's more.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
So yeah, I would say that, you know, if you're trying to convince yourself to switch, I think that there are better options out there, at least from what I've seen. Again, I don't have, I have like 2 or 3 things from Fifth Axis, haven't been stoked on them. They haven't burned me, but I just haven't been thrilled with it.
Yeah. And like, you don't have to like go whole hog right away.
Right.
Like, to that point, like if you want to start with a vise, just swap the pull studs. That is like the best thing that I'm like so fucking shocked that out of all the things the industry is really standardized, it's like the way that the pull studs mount to the vise is all the same.
Yep.
It's all like M10 or whatever.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, M10 and like a 16 millimeter or whatever bore, and it's like, that's insane.
It's awesome.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
Because like I could a company like Lang, I could easily see them being like, it's
This is
M11.
ours.
Like,
Right, yeah,
it's M11,
exactly. 17
millimeters.
Yeah.
Fuck you.
Yeah.
You're not using anything. But yeah, and then I guess like toolpath.com, do we want to touch on that stuff or?
We can touch on it, and then I'll just verify with Justin that we can actually touch on it.
Yeah, so like programming template, we'll just touch programming templates real quick because like that's a huge ass topic. We should probably do like a whole fucking episode on templates or something.
Yeah, and you know what I found out in Fusion, and I don't know if you've seen this yet, on one of the most recent updates, you can now favorite right-click templates, and it pops up in your bar.
Yeah.
So now between like 2D and 3D, maybe it is, or between 3D and the next one over, there'll be a little template thing, and you can just hit the drop down and hit your favorite template.
That is cool. Like most of the new update has just pissed me off.
Yeah, the heights tab stuff.
It broke flat kind of too. Like I had a lot of like I was really annoyed because this fucking part that it just has a lot of rotations. And I was using flat a lot, and then they changed the model, and so I was like, okay, I'm going to put the new model in and reassociate the geometry, and it was just like, no flat surface found, no flat surface found, no flat surface found. It's like, that's only a fucking flat surface. Like, it's the same fucking thing. And then I was like, oh, well, let me just go back to the other model, and it's like, nope.
Yeah.
Like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, what is happening right now?
Yeah,
like
the new heights tab is, I think, a very... I think it's a regression. I don't think it's a benefit at all.
Yeah.
And then I've also, the real irony is that we had that update with the new heights tab. Then maybe a week ago we had one that just said the only release notes for like the mid one was just fixed a bug that caused crashing in the manufacturer workspace.
Yeah.
And since that one has come out, I've had 3 crashes in 2 days.
I did have a crash. I've had a crash. It's been since like the first one, I've had a lot of crashes.
Mm-hmm.
It's been running really slow. Like, I was like, oh my God, like, what is happening? The internet is so bad at this shop too that like it's so bad sometimes I can't even like open my email. Like Gmail just like hangs and it'll just give me like a fucking temporary error. And I've never been like so fucking frustrated in my life where I'm like, how am I gonna program your parts, bitch?
Right.
Like,
yeah.
what are we doing here? But like, yeah, it's been the last couple updates have been not great, but the fucking template thing sounds cool.
It's awesome.
I'm gonna have to fucking dive into that.
Yeah, that has been fantastic. I was super stoked. I think I saw it in maybe either the release notes or somebody online was talking about it. And I was like, oh, I should give that a shot. And then I like favorited it a few. I was like, ooh, this is great. This is awesome.
Yeah, I did use like because we're doing the like collaborative demo thing, and like Tim made a cool container for like our Vice stack and everything. And that was the first time I used the joint origin stuff.
Joint origins are so powerful.
That is really fucking rad. Like I really like this a lot. Yeah. And I like because like how he had it, and like I was like, oh, this is cool. And then I was like, oh, I can add one here for my work offset or whatever. And like, oh, and you have the one at the bottom. Like you had one at the bottom for fixture attachment. And it's like this is like because you had at one point had showed it to me and I just never dove into it, and then like Tim did it. I'm like, I mean, kind of like wild to be like working with Tim fucking Paul. So he's like, yeah, I did this cool shit, and it's like, yeah, you did.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
Another tip to build on that Phil showed me is when you're building those joint origins, if you label them the same name as where you click them in the setup. Yeah. So like for WCS, make the one that for your WCS called WCS. Yeah. And for fixture attached, make it called fixture attached. Yeah. That way it's very easy to read through your setup and go, okay, WCS is set. The fixture attached is set. Because it's like they're named exactly the same and you see them right there.
Right. I like that. Yeah. I like that a lot. Yeah.
And then, Toolpath, they have already released that they are having a booth. Mm-hmm. They have the cornhole tournament. Yeah. I think I don't know if they've said anything about the podcast studio yet. I will make sure that we can talk about that.
Yeah, I hope so, because fucking...
It's going to be dope.
Well, and the other guys talked about it.
Oh, yeah. So then I guess we can.
Yeah, right? Like,
yeah. So they're going to have a podcast studio. We're going to be recording there 30, 45 minutes every day, maybe a little bit longer if we pull some other people in. Yeah, right. I mean, how else do you wind down at the end of the day? Yeah. You guys don't just talk to people for hours?
Yeah.
We're definitely going to be doing that. I know the Bomb's going to be recording. It sounds like Jay and Andrew from Lean Built are going to be recording. I don't know if Uriel is going, but we should pull in maybe Devin and Justin from Parts Department, and we can all kind of do an episode together, because I don't know that I know Jem from Parts Department's not coming, and I don't know about Uriel, so we can kind of collaborate on a mega episode of...
Oh, man. I'm so pumped. It's going to be a yap fest, I swear.
So that's going to be epic. Definitely make it out to the Toolpath booth. I think that because they're located in the machine hall, it's going to be an awesome place as an Insta machinist to go and stop by. Right. If you need to take a load off real quick, put stuff in your backpack, say hi to Al and Tim and the team and Justin and everybody. I think it's going to be the place to hang out during IMTS, because I very often over the last few years needed a place like that, and would end up either sneaking into a booth and sitting on their couches or something to just take a load off for a second and answer a phone call or something, or I would end up on one of those random benches between halls. So having a designated place to go hang out is fantastic. It's just so cool.
That's gonna be sick. Yeah.
Rapid City CNC also asked, what are we looking forward to at IMTS? Again,
the boys.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's just about the seeing friends. I really do love all the machine stuff, and I always learn stuff. But man, it's just getting to connect with people, especially for me and the podcast. And I'm sure for all the listeners too, I meet all of these people in real life.
Yeah.
The last Curd meetup, I had so many people come up.
And they're like, I've heard you speak for hours.
Right. Well, and they're like, oh, I'm so-and-so. And I'm like, and they're like, oh, I'm at whatever. And I'm like, oh, awesome. We talk all the time, So it's just so cool. I really like, I would hang out with these people outside of IMTS usually.
Right.
Like I think I've met 1 in 100 people that I'm like, I'm glad IMTS is every 2 years.
Yeah.
But like,
yeah.
for the most part, everybody I meet that listens to the podcast or isn't in the community, they're just super chill, and I love being around them. So
yeah, it's gonna be a blast. It's interesting, like going now, like because the last one, like we didn't know each other. We met.
We met for 5 minutes, or if that.
And like now here we are, and like Pete posted that picture, like he like texted us that picture of like you and him in the same picture.
Right.
And I was like, oh, I'm also in that picture.
You're like,
that's
I know
me.
that backpack.
I was like, that's me right behind you. And he's like, shut up. And it's like, yeah, I was like, oh, I have a backpack like that. It's like, oh, that's me. That's why.
Right.
Like,
I still can't believe that was only 2 years ago. Yeah. Because I do remember that, like, we were DMing back and forth, because I think I just had Melissa on the podcast, and that's how we got connected.
Yeah.
And kept saying like, oh, we got to meet up. And then we like kept literally walking by each other.
Right. And you're like, I'm busy. And I was like, yeah, I'm fucking running. And then we talked for like a little bit at like the Haas event or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, and then that was it. And then like the meetup, kind of, not really. And then
that was overwhelming. I think, I hope that I can handle myself better. Like if anybody came to the last one and met me and I kind of blew you off, it was not at all because of you. It was quite overwhelming.
It is. I mean, you probably experience this a lot more than I do, but it is like very interesting meeting people that have listened to you talk a lot. Cause like it happens to me occasionally, and you're like, it's interesting,
right?
Because there's like there's a one way. This is talked about a lot. The parasocial, where like there's like a one way familiarity there, and it's like, especially like I've like bared my soul on this thing about like being broke and like my mom dying and all this other shit. So like people know like my whole life, what I've eaten for breakfast and like how I don't sleep and whatever. But it's like, it is kind of rad, especially if I'm like walking into like a work environment and they've listened to the podcast, like with Alex and Ian, because like there's just this, it's just like instant, like you know me, like, and if you recommended me, it means that you're like into my personality. So like I can just walk into that like myself, and we're just like, let's go, let's just get to work, bitch. Yeah.
No, it's always great. Like it is very strange for sure to have people come up and talk to me, and again I have to ask them, and who are you? Like,
it is like when I talk to people and they're like, I'm like, I say stuff and I'm like, wait, but you listen to the podcast? And I was like, and they're like, yeah. It's like, so you know everything already. I don't even need to talk about this.
Yeah, I'm telling stories again. So
it's
that's
cool.
the biggest thing. Otherwise, I haven't seen anything online yet that I'm excited to see. Like, I'm excited to see whatever Brother comes out with. It'll be cool. Last time they brought out their first 5-axis, it'd be cool if they had like a pallet system or something.
That's a really good point. Like, I feel like last one, there was just like a lot of hype that it was fucking happening.
Right.
You know, after like 2020 and everything, like the novel coronavirus cucked us all. And
it really did.
But now here we are, like, and like 2022 is just like, we're back, baby. We're so back. Automation. And it doesn't really seem like, it kind of seems more like this one is going to be a little more traditional with like a lot of machine demos. And like, I see a lot of people like the machine tool companies that I follow, just like they're prepping cutting stuff.
Right.
You know, I mean, like,
I saw Makino is back this year, which is very interesting.
And I think Haas is not there this year.
No, they're there.
Oh, they are? Somebody
sure.
was telling me that they weren't going to be there.
I'm fairly certain that, that would be such a big space to get released.
Right.
Like, oh my God, that would be terrible.
Yeah. But yeah, Methods is back. I think Methods has their own booth again. I'm like so pumped for fucking Toolpath to be in the machine, like,
me too.
Area. That is the wildest shit, is like damn, I guess that's the perks of having like Al Watmo as your fucking CEO.
Right. Yeah. Making moves, like, for sure. Oh, and I guess we've both been a few times. Let's give a couple pointers. If this is your first IMTS,
sure.
Make a plan. Right. Especially if you're on limited time. Like, I'm going to be there 4 days. I was there 4 days the first time. I've gone for about 4 days every time. But if you've got 2 days, definitely make a plan.
Yeah. Very, very comfortable shoes. Like,
very comfortable shoes.
Don't bring new shoes. Like, make sure they're well worn. Good socks. Lots of water. You're going to walk a lot. Like, I think I didn't walk less than 20,000 steps each day last year or last show. And like, there's just so fucking much. There are the shuttles and everything, but man, it's intense.
It's miles a day. Because I think it's 1 million square feet of vendors.
Yeah.
It is overwhelming. Yeah. And that's the other thing. If you have more than 1 day, I would go in with a plan, but I would also kind of steer your plan so that like the things you actually need to get done, you get done on your second day. Because I remember at the end of the first day of my first time just being so fried, like just so overwhelmed.
It's a lot of shit.
It's so much. And you're seeing all these people you haven't seen and you're meeting all this, and like there's people scanning your badges and blah, blah, blah. And like it's so much that like I would like speed run the show the first day and then go back and be like, all right, these are the places I kind of need to hit to like actually learn the things I want to learn.
Right.
Yeah, Haas is there. I just pulled up the map.
Okay, cool.
It does look like maybe it's a smaller booth, but I'm not sure.
They're like, we're Haas, bitch. Buy it online.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of what else would be a good...
Yeah.
I expect to spend a ton of money if you eat at the show. The lunches are not great, and it's
very
like
expensive.
A $15 hot dog. That's just like the most basic Costco hot dog.
Also, if you can, like, fucking ask somebody to get you a badge.
Yeah.
Like, if you're in the, like, especially if you're thinking about buying a machine or like you have bought a lot of machines or whatever, it just does not hurt to be like, can I get a badge? And more than likely, somebody can get you a badge.
Yeah. Most of these companies have like a limit, like a bunch of badges to give out. Like they will just give you a free IMTS code that you just go and sign up with. So yeah, if you are buying a machine or you have just bought a machine or you're good friends with a machine tool dealer,
just fucking ask.
Don't see it as like this, like, oh, it's a personal thing that I'm asking my salesman for. Like they want to give out these badges. They have a bunch of them to give out. Definitely ask. It reminds me, like, Pete had a video years ago. It was like a machining hot take video, and it was like, you should never be buying a face mill body. Like, you should always be just buying the inserts and getting it for free.
Right.
Same thing with IMTS badges. You should never pay for one. You should always try to talk to somebody and get one.
Yeah.
For sure.
And if you can get that sweet vendor badge, which doesn't really buy you a whole lot.
You keep talking this up, man. I'm like,
I just like to be able to go like
whenever you want.
Yeah, whenever it is so fun and like, or just so neat to like hit the show like way before it opens and be able to like talk to people before they're in like full on sales mode, like regular people. And that's kind of nice. Or at the end of the day when they're fucking exhausted and they're like cracking kegs and like you can, it's just like it's just more of a relaxed vibe when people aren't in the sales mode.
Yeah, for sure. That makes sense. All right. So our friend Easton, Moria Manufacturing, asked, talk about dealing with employees that don't care as much as you do as the owner.
That's easy. You just like deal with it.
Suck it up.
I mean, that sucks, but that is the reality of owning the business is you obviously are going to care more about it than your employees. Like that's just the nature of the business. Like, and most of the time, like, I mean, in my case, like when like I had Scoob and he cared a lot and then he fucking decided to start his own business that was almost identical to the one that we were doing.
Right.
So like there is a fine line. Like you want them to be invested, and there are people that don't want that want to be a number two, and just like
they want to be a really good employee. They don't want to own their own business. Yeah.
But like that is like 1 in a million. you know, not 1 in a million, but like, you know what I mean? Like there's one of my customers has 2 of those people. Like they have a really good, like this 23-year-old kid who fucking like is so good on the MX100, the B-axis lower turret machine. He's really good on it. Can't really, like, he can like hand program for it, but he can't like code. But like I can hand him like pretty solid code, and if it needs adjustments, he can just like do it, you know. And it's really impressive. And then they have their other guy on the robo drill who just like that's the only place he's ever worked. He started working there in high school running a saw, and now he like sets up the Haberly and like whatever other machines there are, and like does some like pretty trick macro shit, and like he just cares a lot, and they like let him do whatever. And that's the guy who I'm like, hey, do you want to like learn how to program? And he's like, kinda. And then I asked his boss, I'm like, can I like, you guys want me to come out there and teach him how to program? And he's like, yeah, absolutely. Like, come on, let's go. And like you have people like that, like those people exist, but most of the time you're going to have people that don't care. And even those people, they're not going to fucking care. Like they're really, really good, but they're never going to care as much as you. And like that sucks. But like it's like when you get into a management position, it's like nobody in anything you do where you're delegating, nobody's ever going to do it as good as you. And so like you have to, like, at some point you're either going to be like some fucking maniac like Steve Jobs but nobody is, like, and demand perfection, which in that case, like, people work for you for a while because like you're gonna make them really good or whatever, and then they're gonna fucking leave, like Johnny Ives or whatever,
right?
Or you're just going to figure out how to work with what they have, which is like that is the more practical way to go about it. Is, I mean, just like management 101, every person is different. You can't manage them all the same. You have to manage them differently. And like what they are willing to put into the business, you have to realize, like, and like figure out a plan for what they can do for you. And that's fine.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's just how it is. It kind of sucks, like, but
well, I think the line is there is like, if you can quantify it as a expectation,
right,
that's different than them not caring as much as you about the intangibles. Like you can't expect them to think like you all the time, but if it's something you could say, like, these are your job duties, you need to do them, and they are quantifiable things, that's not caring, that's just being bad at your job,
right? So
like you have to find that line, and you have to be very clear of like, you know, I don't expect you to think like me, but we have these processes and you're not following them, and that's why you've scrapped that part or something. You know, like that's different. So I think that, but it's very easy to conflate those two things.
I mean, especially like in Easton's case, where like he went from basically being by himself with Matt part-time to having like 3 employees like very quickly, and that is a lot. As like somebody who just did that, who did that exact same thing like 2 years ago, it's a lot to manage very quickly, because like you do think like, oh, I could just slot these people in, but they all have different personalities. Like on a spreadsheet, they're all the same, but like they're just not the same. Like, I mean, he's told us about some stuff, and you're like, Jesus, that's crazy.
Yeah. It's tough. Easton and I were talking yesterday about this, and you know, it is very tough when you've gotten so used to being on your own or thinking about things on your own to then expecting people to just like, I even have it with Brad. Like, Brad's a very competent machinist, very smart guy. And then he does stuff. I'm like, what were you thinking? Like, what you weren't thinking, like, what are you talking about? But like, I can't expect him to know every single thing I do.
Yeah. And then you give him a knuckle sandwich for lunch.
So it's just tough. Like people are never going to think like you, and it's impossible. It's so hard as an entrepreneur to not hold people to that standard of like, What do you mean
Yeah.
you haven't thought of these 83,000 things that I've thought
Yeah.
of? Like, what do you?
Right.
Are you crazy?
I mean, for me, I'm on like cycle number 2 of employees,
Right.
and so it's like way easier the second time around because I'm like, Hirsch, you have that, right? Sick. I'm fucking doing other shit,
Right.
And like John, I'm like, you got that? Like you're doing this? Oh, you changed that? I like that. Like, let's go. Like,
Yeah.
It does get easier, but like there is like, I mean, it's just a like a calibration phase of essentially being, I mean, to that point of being on your own and thinking like it's a comfortability type of thing where like now you were so, I mean, maybe not like, cause like you said, we're always fucking stressed out, but there's that stress is familiar and you're used to that stress and you're used to managing that stress. Cause like it is the same all the time, but now it's a different kind of stress on top of the other stress, which makes the other stress that was familiar now uncomfortable because
Right.
it is added.
Yeah.
Like you're like, oh, yuck. And it's just like it, I mean, like Easton, if you're listening, and I know you are, it'll get better. I promise.
Yeah. I am both looking forward to and dreading having to go through those.
You'll be fine.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
It'll all work out for
Yeah.
sure. But like I said, I said it on Ethan's episode or the one after, like even having someone as competent as he is and like just an absolute rock star
Yeah.
still made me nervous from
Right.
time to time. And so like, I can't imagine having someone who I don't trust nearly that much doing stuff. And it's like,
Yeah.
I know that there's going to be mistakes and it's just,
Yeah.
you know, I will have to just keep that same sentence that my first boss said to me running through my head of just
fuck up.
can you
already.
hurry up and fuck up so I
Yeah.
can start trusting you? And I'll just that'll be my
Go
mantra.
fucking crash that Hermel already. dude.
No, and see that's
Yeah.
the thing. It's like he was very
Yeah.
specific of like make the distance to go mistake
Yeah.
when it's an 1/8 inch end mill and it blows up the tool and
Right,
it
right,
doesn't,
right.
you know, that kind of stuff. It's like all about making the common mistakes that can crash a Hermla,
Yeah.
but make them on the oldest brother with a small
Right.
tool that
Yeah.
doesn't even break the machine. You know, it's all about that kind of stuff. So it's gonna be tough.
Yeah, it is going to be interesting, but you know, like it's a necessary evil. You'll be fine.
Yeah.
We'll be fine.
We'll be fine. Last one, Unicorn Manufacturing asked, fighting rust on tools and nice equipment in an open air shop. He has 6 more months here, and it's a constant battle.
It's a good question. Like,
Stare at M2 oil on anything that
Right.
you can soak in oil. That
Yeah.
stuff creates like they call it like a nano barrier, but like
Right.
it's a very thin film oil. Stare at, I want to say it's called like tool oil or
Yeah.
stare at something. Is another thin one. It comes in a little yellow tube. You can buy it on Amazon. I put that on all my measuring tools. Like that's what I wipe down calipers with eventually, mics,
Right.
all that stuff.
right.
LPS3 on anything hard that goes together, like vices. I put it on under all my vices. I put it under all my jaw carriers on my vices,
Just
under all the lang plates.
Straight up, like, also, like, what works too is like anti-seize underneath the vise is like fine.
Yeah.
Pretty much like anything that doesn't have water in it underneath the vise
Yeah.
is a good call. And to that point too, like, a good way to know if your coolant isn't mixed well is if your fucking shit starts rusting inside the machine.
Yep.
Like that is a surefire sign that your shit's fucked up.
Yeah.
Because you're like, oh, it's separating. I'm just spraying water everywhere and it's rusting, which is shitty.
Yeah.
But that's like, mix your fucking coolant well. Like, I had a customer, like, I don't know if I said it on here, but like they were just like fill their tank up full of water and then just like dump the concentrate in and run the pump. And like, I posted those videos. I showed you those videos, like chunky,
So gross.
dude.
So gross.
Yeah, it was really gross.
Yeah.
Like disgusting. Like, oh my God.
The other thing to check is start keeping track of where you're touching your touch points a lot and see if that's where the rust is coming from.
Yeah.
And if it is, then start wearing gloves. Certain people are much more acidic than others and actually cause rust like crazy. And then even a normal quote unquote person can it create rust if you're in a bad environment like that. And so if you are, then you can just start wearing gloves and it becomes less of an issue.
Right.
But yeah, I see rust like cancer. So like I very often, like if I see bad rust, I'll just throw it away. I don't care what it is. It's like, you know what? There's no saving this. It's done.
It is so weird. Like, I mean, I guess not for you, but like you probably dealt with this in some of the shops you were in, especially like in Arizona where the shops are swamp cooled. So you're like literally pumping fucking humidity into the shop, which is crazy.
Yes.
And so shit gets rusty, and you have like all these places like the taper's rusty, the flange is rusty, and it's like, what? We're gonna put that in there? Mm-hmm. Are you shitting me right now?
Right.
Like, that is insane. Or the shops that one of the weirdest ones is like the hoarder, like bigger hoarder shops where it's like, well, we're not gonna use it. It's like, okay, so like let's get rid of it. And they're like, no, it's a holder.
Right.
Like, but you just said we're not gonna use it. So like, what are we gonna do with it? It's like, I don't know. But not, it's just gonna sit there, like and just keep collecting rust.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's, but those three really work well. M2 is what I use on all my collets after I clean them in the ultrasonic.
Yeah.
Great for keeping a thin film on stuff. It dries and makes a great thin film. Starrett, I think it's instrument oil. I think it's what it's called.
Yeah.
That's great for measuring tools.
Okay.
And then, LPS3s work great. The other one, dry moly, works really good under vices, fourth axes. The only thing is that it does stain. It's not bad, but it will darken your table. But it is probably the best rust preventative I've ever used.
Oh, shit.
Like, as it dries hard.
Yeah.
So, like, you spray on a fairly thick film, and then that stuff gets hard, and then you put your vise down. Like, we had that aluminum orange subplate on the X1 for a year and a half straight.
Yeah.
And there was not a single bit of rust under it.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah. So
that's good. You still use orange stuff?
We use their 6-inch vices a bunch still because they're all lang studded at this point.
Yeah.
We're not actively buying anymore. Everything is pretty much going to lang. Like, I think that we're probably going to end up with some of the Lang Ultra vices.
Right.
Because that's one, like the reason we continue to use the oranges a lot is that they have a really, like the double station ones we use in a single station mode. And so we can hold a 12 or 14 inch piece between the outside jaws. And then the ultras just kind of look at that and laugh. And they're like, we can hold 30 inch pieces if we need to.
Juan uses the ultras.
Yeah, they have a few of them.
Those are cool.
They're awesome.
Very interesting design.
It's cool because the nut on the tightening side is magnetic, so you can actually pull the half nut off with a magnet, reposition the entire jaw really quick, drop it back on, and then tighten it up the last little bit.
That is like chick on steroids.
Yeah.
Probably cheaper too.
Potentially.
No, probably not. But chick stuff's crazy expensive for what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah. So those are my recommendations. If you have any more specific questions on things you're seeing rust on, feel free to reach out. Rust sucks. Really sucks.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just like fucks everything up.
Yeah.
Especially like if it's all inside your machine machine envelope or whatever, and then you run your coolant and they're like, oh, it's not rusty anymore. It's like, no, it's just fucking everywhere.
Right. Yeah.
Let's go.
Now you've spread that cancer to everything.
Yeah. There was one more question that somebody asked about like dumping money into old machines.
Oh, yes.
Which is like, he asked about adding probing to an old ass machine, which like for me, I'm all for it. Like you had an old ass machine, you had a couple old ass machines. Like, I think it makes sense to dump money into them for as long as it makes sense, I guess. Like, it's such a weird thing to say, but like, if you're able to make money with it and it's not a problem, like, then sure. Like, but to the point of like, to his point of like, when do you stop upgrading it before you're like, what am I doing? Like, why aren't I just like putting this money towards a new machine? Probing can be really expensive. Like, if you're talking about like a legit like Renishaw system and you're about to put like $20,000 on this like 92 Matsura, that goes a long way towards like a VF2.
Right. That's a good down payment on like a new machine.
Yeah. So like if you're there and like you can't get probing for cheap, like I have, like for me, I probably would put probing on my Matsura, but I can get probing on it for really cheap, like under $5,000.
Right.
So like why wouldn't I do that?
Yeah.
Because the machine fucking rips. But if I was gonna, I would, if it came down to putting like $20,000 into it, then I'm probably just buying a VF2.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, 100%. I think that like it's that measure too of how busy you are. Mm-hmm. Like if you're the one dumping the money into the machine, you're probably doing the work as well. And so like if you have the time in your day to do that, mm-hmm. and you know it's a little bit here and there, you're adding some nice lights, you're adding a tool setter that you found on eBay for cheap.
Yeah.
Sure, Jarrett like adding the silver CNC stuff to his Sharp.
Yeah.
Great money. That was cheap.
Right.
Like very, very cheap and much cheaper than buying a new machine. But yeah, putting 25 grand. Like if I had ever had the thought of putting 20 grand worth of probing in that old brother I had, or like the Kitamura, it's like
no.
That I want to say our down payment on our first S700 was 12 grand or 15 grand. It's like we had to make money at that point.
Right.
I didn't have time to.
What are we doing?
Yeah.
Yeah. What are we doing here? Yeah. So I guess like at a certain point, if like there is like especially if it's your first machine, there's like, a little bit of an emotional attachment to it. Probably you're invested and you're like, I want to keep this thing still goes, and it's just like that far from being exactly what I want. But it's like, I mean, I just keep using a VF2 because like that's basically the size of the machine. Like that'll do everything that old Matsura will do. Right. It'll be brand new. It'll have probing on it. Like
it'll have service that's like easy. Well, I mean, for you can get it, but like some of these older machines don't.
Yeah.
Like our Kitamura, like good luck.
Yeah, if you're not in Selway's territory, like I don't know about like how Yamazin is with old Matsuras at all.
Right.
Like I don't know. Yamazin and I don't know. Like it's just so hit or miss.
Right.
Like across the board, we're like if you're in California, fine. Like if you're like in fucking Maryland or Delaware, like I don't know of anybody that has a Matsura over there.
Right. I don't know of anybody. I don't know where the nearest Yamazin office is to those states.
Yeah.
Is the way I would put it.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, so I think that's kind of the weighing that you have to do on an old machine.
Right.
We kind of went over shop and news, new things. What did you research this week, Chris?
Good question. This week, I mean, recently, it's just been a lot of like little fusion things, I think. Like I used the rotary contour path for the first time and I was like not quite getting what I wanted. So I was like watching some videos on that. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. Travel, well, research and travel a lot. And yeah, it's kind of been, I've been kind of like nose down. I mean, like typical answer is like nose down, just like fucking grinding and traveling and whatever. But it's been mostly like most of the research has been fusion related.
Okay.
And a little bit about now that the like partnership is like for sure not happening, and like just kind of weighing my options on like, do I keep the machine in Idaho or do I move it to Massachusetts? Like, what are we going to do there? Like, it's not like an immediate thing, but just kind of like looking at like, oh, what is a space in Massachusetts cost? It's like close to my house.
Right.
Right. And like, is now the time? Like, are we getting closer to end game of like, I'm finally fucking there? Because I have been spending a lot of time on the East Coast, but I've also been spending a lot of time fucking everywhere.
I was going to say, every time you say that, you switch coasts the next month.
Right. And so I'm like, or, I mean, like John and I have been talking very like high level of if this is something he wants to do long term, like do we just like fucking put it in Tennessee,
right,
where he is,
and then he can make fixtures for you,
right?
Yeah,
and I'm like, because like that might work.
Yeah,
know?
That's something you've been talking about for a while.
Yeah. So it's like something where somebody else is like is probably where it, because I have some parts to make for a project, and it's like I'm probably just gonna outsource it because now I have money, and like it is technically cheaper for me to make it myself, but when,
right?
When do I do that?
Exactly.
What about you?
So, the thing I have been researching a little bit is live streaming, because Pete and I are starting. We'll see how often we do it. Hopefully weekly or bi-weekly or something. We're calling it Out of Spec, hosted by Within Tolerance and Chatter, and it's going to be a live stream both on the Within Tolerance YouTube channel and Pete's Twitter X account, whatever, spaces, whatever they call them.
Yeah.
He's actually, he does some super cool interviews on there. Like he's got Carl Bass on there this week, which is wild.
Yeah.
But we're going to be doing live DFM advice, roasting, going through models and showing engineers and people in the industry how to make things more manufacturable, cheaper, better, all of that stuff. We tried to do one this last week. My power went out 5 minutes into it, if that.
Yeah.
Not ideal.
Fucking got him.
Yeah. But I was doing a lot of research into like OBS and how to do all that. And yeah, it was just a little bit outside of my wheelhouse. I got the audio stuff down. I just have never done any kind of like live anything really.
Right.
So that was fun. It was really cool. And I'm looking forward to doing the other one. If you're not subscribed to the Within Tolerance YouTube channel, definitely head over there and subscribe, because you'll see notifications for the lives coming up. So a new one from Doug on the Patreon. He wanted us to start giving a tip of the week, because he thinks that, we talk about a lot of tips, all that stuff. It would be cool to share a tip a week of, something we came across that is helpful.
That was some quick shout out to him too, is like some of the best feedback we've ever gotten. Before, besides like this guy's fucking annoying, or like he cusses too much. Like that's like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the tip of the week thing, it's like, oh, that is good.
Yeah,
that's really good.
It's great. Do you have any tips?
I've been thinking about this, and the one that's like coming to mind is like so dumb, but like it is like, I mean, it just kind of goes in line with the manufacturing happy hour stuff, which is just like aggressively self-advocate, like that. I mean, that's just been on my mind a lot, is like just fucking go for it and do it. And I guess also the other thing would be just like, in light of the partnership, is just like, fuck that. Just,
so what I'm hearing is don't catch your chickens before they've hatched. And don't get your hopes up when something like that happens.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, it's the hardest thing to do. Like, I mean, at least for me,
I'm right there. Like, I see something I want, and then there's a sparkle. I'm like hook, line, and sinker into it.
It's just, I mean, and really like taking it back to like what I actually mean is just expectation management, for yourself and for, I don't know, like clients or customers or whatever, but expectation management of like just, keeping everybody on the level and saying what you mean. 'Cause like that's ultimately what happened there, was like he wasn't saying what he meant, and I just like wasn't really. And I kind of knew it, but I wasn't really. It was probably like I wasn't asking because I knew what the answer was,
right?
And I was hoping it wasn't going to be that.
Yeah, it's hard to see red flags when you have rose-colored glasses on.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's just like, I don't know, man. Like, but yeah, like I don't know if that's really a good tip. managing expectations.
Well, do you have a machining tip maybe from your last job that you're back in town to work?
The one that I was talking about with Graham is like, there's a really cool Australian phrase that I like called "we're not like that." I think Nick said it, Nicholas Hacko, which is like, we're not here to fuck spiders. Which is just like, get on with it. I think, you know, like the thing that
Nick or Josh?
Josh,
Okay.
sorry, Josh. Yeah, it's the 0 to 1 aspect, like that I've been talking about. I didn't realize that was a Peter Thiel book, but I've been saying this a lot. Is the machining, just do it, you know, which is like easier said than done. But like one of the hardest things I see for my customers is just starting, you know, and like that can be difficult. But perfect example, one of my customers, like, I'm always thinking like, he's just very this one programmer is very hypercritical of everything that I'm doing, you know. Oh, you did that and you made a good part. Okay, well, that only works for that. Like, that process only works for this part. And it's like, he's saying it like a negative, but I'm like, right, we have a workflow for this part.
Right.
And he's like, well, you got to understand, like, I'm just always thinking of trying to make it better. And it's like, right, but you have to do it first.
Right.
And like
you still have to make parts, dude.
Right. And so like that's my biggest tip is like, at a certain point, it doesn't matter what you're doing, just fucking do it. Mm-hmm. Which is like easier said than done, but like, just fucking do it.
Yeah.
Like, try it. If you don't, it doesn't matter. Like, truly, like, does not matter whether or not you think it's going to work. Just fucking do something. Mm-hmm. Like, sometimes you're like, I don't know if that's going to work, but there's only one way to find out. And like, at a certain point, like, that's just all there is to do it, is just fucking push the button and see what happens. And like, maybe you'll toss a part. Why did I toss that part?
Right.
And you just learn always, like, and that's the biggest tip I have, which, I mean, I think I've said that a shitload on here too, is just like, just fucking go for it, man.
Right.
Like, we're not here to fuck spiders. Just fucking get it done. It's not that, like, it's like, we're in such a good, you mentioned this earlier, we're in such a fantastic point of the industry where it's not like you get to the machine without any idea of what's going to happen. You know what I mean? More than likely, you programmed it, you watched it run in sim, like, you have very modern controls that's going to tell you what it's doing and like where it's going and how far it's going to go. You like can stop it, you can single block, you can do whatever. So like, if it comes down to the right spot and you hit the button, sometimes what I'll do, and like, this is like, if I think it's going to work, but I also think it might toss the part, is I'll just push the button, I'll walk away. Cause if it stops where I know it's going to stop, like, if it stops, it sounds crazy, but like, if it stops at the Z plane that I expect, then I know that it's going to do the right thing. If it's going to toss the part, there's nothing that I'm going to be able to physically do to stop it from tossing that part.
Right.
So I'm out of there. Like, I'll just listen from afar.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to watch it. It scares me.
I like that.
Yeah.
Totally changing gears. Tip from this week.
Yeah.
Get good at deburring and get some good deburring tools.
Yeah.
Then I'm not talking about in-machine deburring. No. Obviously, that is the ideal. But by the way, tried out some micro chamfer mills from Hoffman. Okay. So I have a 1 millimeter and a 0.5 millimeter. So you can really get up close to edges and down and like tiny.
0.5 millimeter.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Fantastic.
What's the shank size on that?
3 millimeter?
Damn.
I think so. But what I'm talking about, and especially this has now become even more pertinent with 5-axis, is like when I'm tabbing stuff off, got a little tab, you got to sand it off, and then you got to make it look pretty.
Right.
Things, I'll do them in order of least expensive to most expensive. Least expensive. This is a tip from Easton. McMaster has mold polishing stones in a bunch of different grits. We use 400 and 1,000. They also they have them in a million different chemistries and different sizes and shapes. they're all between $2 and $20. Definitely get you some of them. I'm trying to remember the exact chemistry of the one that we use the most. They are brown. I believe they're pre-oiled, but I can't remember. But yeah, we use the 400 in an 1/8 inch thickness and a 1/4 inch thickness, and the 1000 in the same thicknesses. They are great for breaking edges on everything from aluminum to stainless steel and titanium. Best part about them is that if you slip, unlike a deburring knife, you might scratch the surface, but you will not gouge the surface, which I think we have all gouged the surface or two and had to either remake a part or fix a gouge. It sucks.
Yeah.
Those are 10 out of 10, would buy again, do buy all the time. You break them, whatever, it's $2 or $3. You know, sometimes I'll purposely break them so I have a little piece to get into a little crevice or something.
Nice.
Fantastic. Next step up, buy cheap import granite plates.
Yeah.
And stick down. You can either use spray glue for sandpaper, or I found, I want to say it was through a Spencer Webb.
Sticky circles.
No, 3M makes diamond lapping film with pressure sensitive adhesive on the back. And so we have that now in a few different grits, and that stuff, like you can get almost a mirror polish on a part with that.
Fuck yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
You can buy it on Amazon. We get the import ones from MSC because we've got free shipping on our account. So like I think I can get a 12 by 18 for $60, maybe $80.
Yeah.
Super cheap. Worth it. It doesn't need to be like double A grade or anything. It just needs to be a B grade tool room plate.
Yeah.
You throw down some lapping stuff on there and you can get really good flatness on parts. Top of the tier, obviously crazy expensive, an NSK Evolution little Dremel electric, I don't remember, micromotor, I think is what they call it.
Right.
Ours uses 1/8 inch shanks. I think they have one that also holds 3mm shanks. We buy a million different little attachments, stones on McMaster as well for a couple bucks a piece. And that thing, it takes a lot of finesse and a lot of messing stuff up. But man, for trimming down a thicker tab that I can't like break off with my fingers, works fantastic. And I use that usually. My workflow is like that. I'll get it down to maybe plus 10 or 15 thou. And then, another cheap one, finger sanders. You can get them on Amazon. They have like little belts of sandpaper. Yeah. And they're cheap. It's like $20 for the set, I think, of 3, and then a bunch of extra sandpaper bits. We use a ton of those. So like I'll do the Evo, I'll use the finger sanders, and then once everything is like flush, I'll go to my surface plate and hit it on the sandpaper or the lapping films.
Fuck yeah.
So all of that, obviously we all want perfect parts that tab off perfectly and don't have any burrs, and you're not doing any of this offline. But like, that's not the real world.
Right.
So like having these tools makes my job that much easier. Definitely highly recommend them.
Yeah, because if you get it off the machine, like well enough, fuck it, right?
Right.
Yeah. I mean, most of the time you're going to make like a handful of them and never see them again.
Yeah. Yeah. So if I have to do, 5 seconds of sanding to get that tab off and get that one flat surface, like the thing is I choose the surface that is flattest, has the most surface area for me to create like the triangular offset tabs that I've talked about on here.
Right.
I can usually in aluminum get those down to like 2 thou thick, so I can break them off with my hand, and then I just use, like, especially on a square part, I'll just go over to that surface plate and hold the part at a 45 and just put a chamfer on it with it, and like take the rest of the tab off with it, and like you never know. Yeah, like it looks great.
Yeah, done.
Yeah. So that's my tip for the week. Chris, dude, thanks for coming down.
Yeah.
I think it's about time we wrap this up before we both start.
Tired. I gotta drive like an hour and a half.
Right.
To drive.
Exactly. Yeah. I think we should wrap this up. Thank you all for listening. Thanks to all the Patreon members. I feel like we had a new one this week. Give me a second. YZFXTX. Thank you so much. And thank you all for listening. I will be back next week.